All right, good evening, everyone. I will go ahead and call this meeting to order. Board, let's establish we have a quorum, please, beginning with a roll call vote. Christopher.
Here.
Meredith. Here. John.
Here.
Joe.
Here.
Corby.
Here.
I was trying to do it by memory, and I am here as well. We have a quorum. Christopher, has this meeting been properly noticed?
It has.
Thank you. To help ensure that we're centering our board work around our shared values and serving our students, we begin each of our board meetings by reading our district's equity framework and the Ho-Chunk Land Acknowledgement, which can be found at the top of your agenda. Corby, would you be willing to read those for us tonight?
Sure. In the Verona Area School District, our mission is that each student will acquire the knowledge and skills necessary to achieve their personal goals, thrive in a diverse global society, and lead a healthy, self-fulfilling life. To meet this mission, the Verona Area School District will ensure that every individual has access to the educational, social, and emotional support they need to feel valued and affirmed in their unique identities and experiences. We acknowledge that inequities and power dynamics exist in our system, such that some individuals, on the basis of their identities, face barriers to accessing the opportunities they need to experience success. In acknowledgement of such, the Verona Area School District is committed to disrupting these systems of inequity. Right. And the Ho-Chunk Land Acknowledgement reads, there are currently 12 tribal nations who call Wisconsin home, with the Ho-Chunk Nation being the primary group living around Madison. No matter where you are in the state, you are on the ancestral land of a tribal nation. As we begin our meeting, we honor the land upon which we stand.
Thank you. Board, calling your attention to the remainder of tonight's agenda. Any questions or amendments? Otherwise, I'd accept a motion to approve the agenda as written.
So moved.
Thank you, Meredith. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Christopher. All those in favor of approving tonight's agenda as written signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed? The agenda is approved. Moving on to student recognition. This is exciting.
Absolutely. First, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. And we do have a robust 111 slides of information.
I wasn't going to say that.
I said it out loud for today. If you could just see the eyes that came back in. That was awesome. But we are going to start out with, as we always love to do, to be able to celebrate our staff and students. And today we are recognizing the phenomenal work of Hadestown Teen Edition. That was the musical this fall. I continue to say to anyone that wasn't able to join today, just the most outstanding musical performance I have seen in a quarter century of being in education. I know you're not supposed to rank them, but it was pretty doggone. It was really good. And here, representing the students, the staff, and the full community, we have Heather Thorpe, who I said should have a reserved seat there for the amount of recognitions that they well deserve to get. And also we have Mia, who's behind me there. How you doing, Mia? Mia was also, you were on the podcast too, weren't you?
Yes.
All right, so. Again, celebrity status, but we want to hear congratulations to the cast and crew of Verona High School's Hadestown Teen Edition, which has been honored as a recipient of Outstanding Musical Production with the 25-26 Jerry Award. It's basically the Oscars. And the recognition reflects the artistry, dedication, and collaboration of the students, staff, and production team who brought this work to stage. At Verona High School, school theater and music thrive as a shared community experience. Hadestown Teen Edition became a space where students supported one another, took creative risks, and worked together toward a common artistic goal. The production reflects the strength of an ensemble culture where every contribution matters and every role helps shape the final result. The Jerry Awards Wisconsin Statewide High School Musical Theater Recognition Program honors excellence in performance, technical theater, and production design across hundreds of schools across the state. The program highlights the collaborative nature of theater education and celebrates the work of students and educators across the state. Congratulations for this outstanding achievement. So please join me in recognizing Ms. Thorpe and Mia as representatives of the full cast and crew. Thank you so much.
You pretty much covered everything, but we have something for you.
Uh-huh.
So in honor of this occasion, we had shirts made for the show, and it says Jerry Awards 2026, and we're going to sing it again because we are at the Overture Center on Sunday night, right after graduation.
Thank you so
Wow.
much.
So
Thank
we'll
you.
be performing,
Oh my
not the whole show, just one of the pieces.
Oh my
for
gosh,
the
thank you
cast
so
and crew-
much.
Cast and crew. So wear it with pride.
I will,
Wear it
I
with pride.
definitely will.
And and I just want to point out too, Mia and Morty, who are the Spirit Award recipients, were voted on by our students, and they were outstanding student leaders this year. And every year we have 2 seniors who are leaders for the cast and crew, and that's why they received the Spirit Award, because they were chosen by their peers.
That's
And that leadership is really what helps our team just thrive. So thank you, and I hope to see you all at the fall show.
absolutely.
Shrek, October 8th, 9th. So, thank you very much.
Thank you
Can
so
I
much.
ask one follow-up question? I don't know of the Jerry Award. Can you give a little context of like even how a production out of Verona Area High School gets, how does this come to be? What is that award?
So it's a statewide, it's not a competition, but a recognition where they send judges to shows all over the state. There's 2 or 3 judges that come over 1 or 2 nights, 2 performances, and they give a whole huge feedback for the students and the staff, as well as recognitions for nominations. This year we received, if I remember correctly, 15 overall nominations, with Outstanding Musical, of course, being the biggest one. And there's schools all over. So there's schools from Rhinelander, there's schools from Milwaukee area, and they all come upon the Overture Center this Sunday for 2 shows. One show is in the afternoon, so for schools like us, we cannot come in the afternoon, it's graduation, but we'll be performing in that evening. And so they highlight outstanding solo performers as well as outstanding full musicals, and we do 1 piece from the whole show. The kids receive the award on that night of the show. It's really fun. It's just full of electric energy because there's kids, the whole upper balcony, if you've ever been to the Overture Center, is filled with high school kids. And that's where I get to be. And they're all just cheering for each other because it's really a celebration of all of the hard work that, if anybody has done a show before, knows it's thousands and thousands of hours of work that these kids put in. And it's a great celebration.
Thank you. Thanks for that added context, and congratulations again.
Thank you.
Well, as you already stated, as we move into the superintendent's report, I know as a board, we talk a lot about the value of discussion at the board table, and we also have just a lot of information to receive tonight, all really important information, updates, just given the timeliness of toward the end of the school year. So yes, we're going to hear a lot of information, but board members, as always, will engage and share and question, but we're excited to hear all the updates
Absolutely.
for 111 slides.
All good information.
Yes.
Next, I'd like to invite up Coach Steiner for the athletics update. And we did move as a new father. We better get Steiner up here first, knowing that sleep is probably not at the premium right now.
He's actually sleeping really well.
Sleeping really well?
9:30 p.m. to 4 a.m. last night.
All right.
He's 6 weeks old, so that's
Okay.
something. He's a big baby, and I was gonna start off by saying, if you notice my glow, it's not the 14 hours I spent at sectional track last Friday. It's being a new parent. So we welcome Grayson into the class of 2044 from Verona. So he's you can mark him down as one glow for that.
Enrollment information.
Yeah, we got at least one. Yeah.
Here's one.
So yeah, I've been enjoying that, so obviously I'm very thankful for being here tonight. It kind of threw off my usual winter report, so we'll get into that a little bit with kind of my overview. So we're going to start really big picture, then we'll narrow in on some students and some groups at the end, and we'll go over both the winter and spring. As I put in as I was looking into this week, I mean, it would be crazy to look, but I think we might be one of very few schools that have all 9 sports for WIQ meeting at some point. So that gives a lot of credit to our coaches and mainly our student athletes who compete at a high level and put their teams and themselves in a position to still compete. So we got some big tournaments coming up this week, and we're excited for it, but we're going to start with the big picture. So my role as the athletics and activities director is I kind of oversee two things mainly at the high school, but I also help with middle school and then anything with the elementary schools as well. So for the high school specifically, we offer 65 plus clubs and activities. So where those kind of get grouped in is there's things all the way from, our theater department that falls under me, with the 2 productions they have and also some of the other, forensics and stuff like that, all the way to clubs that are just groups of students that are interested in the same thing. That meet once a week or every other week, all under me. And then on the other side, the athletic side, we are involved in all 25 of the WAA sports, and they get recognized in a different column just because they have a whole other set of rules they get to follow usually. This year, I didn't get 12 clubs, so this is almost accurate. We had 3,277 total participations. So what that means is if I did 3 sports, I would count as 3. So in our sports, we had 1,279, and that's broken down over 500 in both the fall and spring, 230 in the winter, which is usually our smaller one just because they're cut sports because they're constrained to inside. And then in our activities side, we have 1,263 what we call co-curriculars. So a lot of times that's your DECAs, your FFAs, your bigger ones that usually have curriculum, DPI regulations, other stuff they have to follow. And then 685 of those were in clubs. When looking at this data, I did find that we had a student that partook of 10 of those as they were a 3-sport athlete and involved in 7 clubs. So if I was their parent, I'd wonder when they're eating lunch because that means they're probably busy, a lot of big pluses, but we have a lot of big involvement and it's really great to see. As we narrow in on that, and the one thing I wanted to make sure I look at is comparing to the high school, because I think the big thing is with athletic activities, if we're not matching the high school demographics and what it is, then we need to find out offerings that will make sure that we're giving people an opportunity to represent themselves. So on the left here, we have the high school stats, which I don't really feel the need to go over, but if you look at the right, we very closely match in most forms. And the stat I was proud to see is 73% of our student body is participating in at least one activity or club. So that takes all of the participants out, so the 3,277, that number is made up out of 1,348 students. And we match pretty closely overall, so that's great to see. A lot of times with that freshman, we do see that a little lower, just because they're starting to learn what clubs and activities we have, and they're still trying to get their feet in the ground. And as you get older, we tend to see probably more involvement, but less volume. Comparing ethnicity, just like once again, this is a common area we see. It's similar. Obviously, we do have some work to do in some of our areas, and I'm not afraid to admit that. Like, that's part of my job is looking at it, and what are we doing to meet the needs of these groups and making sure that we're taking away barriers to make sure they know what's available to them and make sure they have something that gets them involved with Verona Area School District. So once again, when I look at these pie graphs, I see a lot of similarities, which is good. Obviously, we'd like identical matches, but we're not there, and that's something we're working towards in our department. We're looking at GPA, obviously, that's kind of one of the many indicators we have in school success. I'm not saying it's the end all be all. We want kids to find a passion, something that they're passionate about. What I was proud to see is that our student athletes in both athletics and activities were surpassing the average for our school. One of the big things that we talk about in athletics and activities is like being involved helps you stay engaged in school because you now have a reason to go to school. And we're kind of seeing that with this just semester one data and cumulative data of our student athletes and our students involved in activities do a great job in the classroom as well, both averaging well above the 3.0 GPA and also having those 4.0s. Obviously, we don't have the pool that the full school does, but I see this, and you take 10 kids that have 4.0s, 9 of them are most likely going to be participating in some athletic activity. And that shows the time management skills that we want with these, and also the committing to excellence. And what our advisors and coaches hold these kids to, that it's like, hey, if you're not taking care of the classroom, I can't have you be here. And so they take that to heart, and it's great to see that kind of number and how those match as we continue to grow. So the next steps that I want to do with this participation data. So last year it was primarily athletics. This year I went a little broader with both. I want to continue to look into this, and especially live, try to address some of these things in the now, trying to figure out what's going on, why aren't certain maybe groups participating in athletics and activities, try to see what barriers they might face, and try to find solutions to encourage encourage participation and also find groupings that they can be a part of if they just didn't know what's out there. The second one is, with that live data, is being able to ask those questions directly. I'm able to ask a lot of questions to those involved because I have their name, I have their school ID, I can go ask them directly. It's finding those that aren't involved that are a little tougher because you don't know until the end. And at the end, if I sent an email to a kid today, the likelihood of that getting responded to is pretty low with school being on such the end is in sight. And then, like I said, continue to monitor what we're offering and also look for new options that are out there. I know that one that we just kind of started this past year was HOSA, or 2 years ago. HOSA was newer and it's up and coming now, and it's a health, those that want to go into the health services organization. And just seeing how that's grown in the last 2 years. We went from having 2-3 kids get to state. I think this year they had like 11, and then we've had a couple officers. So continuing to make sure we have those offerings, and when the kid comes to us with an idea, we don't just shoot it down because we, that. We give them a chance. We let them kind of run with it. Getting into our winter athletics. So instead of getting all those lovely smiles in front of you, I'm just going to kind of give a broad overview. And then we have some stuff online as well if you ever want to see kind of more in-depth detail of what's going on. So a couple highlights from this winter sports season. We had 2 all-conference championships with our gymnastics and our girls wrestling. So this was the first year where the WIA fully split girls and boys wrestling. So you had to make a decision, and thankfully we had some former coaches and even our current coach started building this program last year. So we had good numbers, and that really helps when it comes to wrestling because you're trying to wrestle 11 weight classes. So being able to fill those weight classes helps win duels. But as you see overall, we had a lot of very competitive teams in the conference, and that was great to see. We had a lot of successes. Our boys basketball team made it to a sectional final. Gymnastics was seeded 7th at state and got 3rd. Our girls hockey team made a good run into the sectional part of the hockey playoffs, which was awesome. And then we get into some of the individuals later on, which we'll see. Brecken Curran. So if you might remember from the fall, there was another Curran who won state in breaststroke. He won state as a sophomore in the backstroke. So that was a really cool thing for him, and to kind of watch him progress through the season, especially being only a sophomore and kind of getting to watch. So I want to make sure I point out him. We had 2 all-state solo dance competitors at state within our dance program with Peyton Long and Brooklyn Sill. State qualifiers in skiing with Grant L., James Fluckelbringer, and Everett. Missing the last name, I know, that's right. Blame it on the baby. But they went to state, and then Lily Schultz and snowboard. So once again, getting all those people recognized. And then our state wrestling qualifiers, obviously they did some big things with Carson and Brennan both getting 3rd place at state as juniors. And then Ethan McIntosh in the bottom right also making it onto the podium. And Jack just kept running into the same guy over and over again. But it's 4 juniors that obviously represented us very well at the Cole Center in individual state. We had a number of all-state honorees for the Wisconsin high school coaches for gymnastics, with Dominica being first team involved, a couple second teamers in Paige and Zoe in the uneven bars involved, and then a few honorable mentions as well. So there was a young team that had to kind of show some things, and they showed up. And Mia being a sophomore, Veronica being a freshman, and then Paige being a junior, there's always room for growth. And we got some big senior shoes to fill, but we got some skill there, which is awesome to see as we continue to move forward. And then give a shout out to Coach Hauser. She won Coach of the Year for the Coaches Association. So she's obviously, we're very fortunate to have her. It's about, I think, 20 seasons now. So that's been great to see, and it's a well-deserved honor for her. 2 all-state honorees for our girls basketball program, in Allie Jersa, who's a senior, and then Macy Strimmel, who's a sophomore. So once again, continuing to celebrate those student successes and also great students. But at the time this was created, there's been some updates. So I made this last week, and that was the last week of the regular season. Like I said, all 9 of these sports are still competing in some form. Baseball just secured their first conference championship in Big 8 history last Friday. So shout out to them. A team that really came together and played some good baseball this season, finishing 15-3 in conference. It's no joke. And we've had, Sun Prairie's and Middleton's and Memorial all have been very competitive this year, and being able to win out was a really cool thing to see. Our softball program had a big win over Middleton last Thursday. And now they're playing tomorrow in the sectional semifinal. So they're playing past where they were seated. They were seated fifth, and now they're playing in the sectional semifinals. And then our boys and girls lacrosse programs are continuing to settle into WI athletics. Our boys are heading up to the great city of Hudson tomorrow, and then the girls lacrosse is hosting a regional final there tomorrow. So we got some exciting things going on in spring sports with girls soccer and baseball postseason starting this week. I want to give a shout out to our track team. Like I said, we had this information before I made the slides. They did win conference as well this year. They don't have a dual record or a record like the other ones, but it is Coach Petretti's final season as a head coach after 21 seasons. So for him to come out and the team to perform on that Friday at Madison Memorial was really cool to see. And if you follow him on Facebook, you probably saw the big, he had invited a bunch of alumni, so it was cool to see them at the sectional meet last Friday. And shout out to them, they won sectionals as well, which was really cool. It's a tough meet, and our state for track, we're sending, I think it's like 9 individual events between the 2 teams and like 6 of the 8 relays. So that really shout out to both track programs for great continued success. The big one I want to highlight that we've started, and they've had some members on Dr. Clary's podcast as well as our Adapted Sports League. So I'm going to start off by giving a big shout out to Coach Mary Kate Riley. I just can't say Coach Riley anymore because we got 2 Coach Rileys in the program. She took this on head on from our school perspective of the Verona Area School District and really helped it grow. So if you look at the team on the left, that's the team in the fall. And we had, I believe, 3 total participants that went the whole season. And then in the spring, it turned around and we had 8 from Verona Area High School. So this is really cool to see. Next year, we're planning on adding another team, so they're going to have 3 seasons. And if you ever have an opportunity to come to that, it's really cool to watch. There's a great article in the State Journal, I believe, last week or 2 weeks ago, kind of about it and where it started up. And we're lucky to have someone like Mary Kate kind of taking the lead on from our school perspective. And then a big shout out to Dr. Clary and the administration for making it work financially. Obviously, when you're adding sports, it's not like the money just grows on tree. They had to make some things work. So shout out to them for doing that. And we're going to continue to watch us grow. And then I think the last shout out is Kim Griffin, who kind of bridged the gap between Joel and myself. And obviously, as she moves on from the secondary director into her assistant principal role, we're going to miss her. But I know that between Mary Kate and I think we got a good hang on it. So we're excited to keep watching this program grow. And it's really fun to watch and let these kids have the same experience that a lot of our student athletes have. This past year, our student athlete initiated leadership. Last I talked about, we kind of had our 4 subcommittees, so I just want to give a quick update on what they're doing. So our culture creators, their big project that they wanted to work on was student engagement. So how can we get students to go to more events? Obviously, we have great attendance at some events, and then we have other groups that feel like no one knows they exist. So trying to find new ways to encourage participation, creating a reward system to get them there is something they're taking on. Our mental health committee is looking into bringing a guest speaker in and trying to encourage participation and coming to hear a guest speaker talk about the importance of mental health, especially in student athletes, and what it's like. Volunteer is they're formatting options of what they can do and what can we do out in the community to make sure that Verona Area Health School is well represented, showing thankfulness to the community that supports us so greatly. And then our leadership group is focusing on a senior transition meeting, which I think was a really cool idea that they come up with, where the seniors meet with the juniors before they leave and say, hey, this is what it means to be a senior in this program. These are the things you need to do. And these are all things that they took on by themselves. I sit there and I answer questions. I question them on maybe some of the smaller details that they might not think about, but I really want to make this a space that they can grow. Additionally, game staffing, we saw greater improvements, and we did that through apparel. So we worked with BSN to give rewards. Hey, you work the game, you get a shirt, you work 5, you get a hat, so on and so forth. And I think we ended up with about 7 people that earned parkas this year, so they get cool new parkas that they get to wear next year in the cold. They wish they could have had them in the winter. I said we didn't have enough events for that. I'm very thankful of you for the video board project that you all approved. Dr. Clary, Mr. Weezy, and myself have been working on to get that up and running and get that ready. We got some dates coming up here that are going to be, you're going to start seeing some changes over on that north side of the football stadium. So we're excited for that. Continue with our boys volleyball information gathering. We saw decent numbers, but not good enough to jump into the deep end on it. So I've been working with Chad to try to figure out a new approach to make sure that we're getting that opportunity off and running before we know it. And then Arbiter is my kind of system I operate in. We are going to be fully at Arbiter by next year, which will be great to see. And next year, what I'm hoping you see to me is, first and foremost, is that sale being put into action. I've talked a lot about it the last year and a half, and next year I hope to be able to come to you with examples of what they're doing out in the community to help grow and create that leadership that we hold our students to at Verona Area School District. I hope you're able to make it to one of our many events where this fancy new video board is going to be put into action, and you can see some of the cool things. And then as we talk with people about it, seeing our student work up on there as well will be a really cool thing to see, kind of those activities. Boys volleyball is continuing to be work in progress, and as we kind of reevaluate how to get that. And then last but not least, just trying to figure out how to get more involvement with our activities, because that's obviously an area where we can have a lot of students that might not fall into an athletic round, find value and find a reason to come to school every day, which is obviously our most important thing. Do you have any questions, thoughts? Otherwise, thank you for giving me time. Hopefully I didn't eat too many of those 111 slides.
Just congratulations on getting some sleep. It's a milestone. But just your examples of SAIL and mental health perspective, looking at racial and gender demographics and participation and recognizing that there's areas of growth. Phenomenal that we have that focus and will continue to put our equity framework in action, especially through athletics, and that it's becoming, it's an inclusive place for our scholars to be welcome. So I just wanted to shout that out.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, just the transparency, all the data pieces, and you sharing goals that you have for the programs with us. Just the vision that you have, forward thinking, looking back, setting goals, the amount of student involvement directly with SAIL. As you said, I'm looking forward to seeing some tangible pieces, some of the outcomes from all the work of kind of getting all of that off the ground.
Yeah.
So thank you.
I think it's kind of scary for the kids at times to think like, oh, you mean we're just not coming and eating lunch every other, once a month? And we're like, no, you want lunch, you got to start showing me something. So yeah, it's really fun. And all the shout out goes to the students. Like I said, my goal with this from the start was to very much make it a student-led group, because at this age, you got to start learning, if you want to be a leader, it's not just a title. You got to be willing to do some work and show what you do.
Mm-hmm. And gratitude always to all the coaches.
Oh, coaches
and volunteers, all the people working. I know you're incentivizing with GARB, but just the countless people that also make all of these events happen in our district and elsewhere for traveling, all of that.
Yeah,
So much.
We are very fortunate here that we have people that care. And it's not just me. Obviously, I wouldn't be here if I didn't care, but it's the people around me that care probably more than I do. At times, just because they're the ones that, they're the unsung work. I'm the one that people see and know and get to do all that fun stuff. And as my wife says, you can't take me anywhere because, I either know someone or someone knows me, but they're the real warriors. And especially, like you said, those coaches, activities, club advisors and stuff like that. They put in time that I couldn't even imagine.
Mm-hmm. I'm excited with the activities piece. I think we heard this in an earlier report a couple of weeks ago about if students have an idea, there's almost always someone willing to advise.
Yeah.
So that makes me really excited when we think about ways to bring in more concepts that students drive it and our staff are super receptive to leading, which is amazing.
Yeah, we're very lucky.
Yeah. Thank you.
No, thank you all. I hope you have a great evening.
Enjoy going to bed with the baby.
I'm gonna hope that I wasn't gone too long. That's what there's some nights where I get home and just a look, and I'm like, what? I'll say thing tomorrow. Thank you all.
Thank you.
As we transition over to Chad and our SR report, I want to take a quick moment to thank the board. This presentation was a reminder of how important it was to have your backing when we moved graduation to Sunday. If you look at we would have lost easily dozens of seniors to our graduation, and having to make a tough decision between an athletic event and once in a lifetime with the graduation ceremony as well. We haven't had any pushback on it, thanks to Epic as well for being accommodating, but this would have been a heck of a Saturday to try to figure this out. And just the proactive way that we thought about this 2 years ago and having your support at the world.
With all our teams still being alive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
every team is still
It could
going.
have been a circus.
Yeah, that's amazing. All right.
All right.
Good to go, guys? We have our little year-end wrap-up, similar to athletics in the world of safety and security. I had these two fine fellas. I didn't even have, is this your first time at the board table or second?
Second time.
All right.
What's your for intro?
That's right, you had an intro. So summer, we were planning on this. You guys agreed to take, in my opinion, in some regards, a chance on bringing the SRO program back to our school district. And with full transparency, that was not 100% guarantee it was gonna work. That you can end up in a place that you don't get a fit with who you hire for an SRO. You don't end up with a principal group and district administration that are on board with making this work. You don't end up with a police chief that's all in. I'm happy to tell you that the little bit of a chance we took here last summer has worked out. And we've got a really great update for you tonight regarding Officer Stoll's first year in our school district with kind of reinstating the SRO program and all of the other things we did relative to safety and security around our district this year. So I'm going to start with outcomes, and then we're going to allow these two guys to introduce themselves. So again, for the board and certainly our community, we're here to reaffirm our commitment to safety and well-being for every student. I can tell you, even from my my time as a principal, learning is next to impossible if students don't feel safe and welcome in your school. And I'm proud of the work we've done district-wide to continue to make sure that is a priority here. Kids have to feel safe and welcome every day, or all the other stuff doesn't matter. We're going to do a little year in review with Officer Stoll and things that we would like to highlight and just make sure the board's aware of. We're here again to demonstrate accountability. The SRO contract required a couple of updates, including Officer Stoll's newsletter that's embedded in board docs for the entire public to see. And then we're going to kind of talk through next steps with this work that is really never done. Safe, welcoming schools. You don't put a bow on it and say we're good to go and figured it all out. It's a continued work in progress. I'm going to have these two guys introduce themselves. If you guys wouldn't mind, just kind of give us a little bit more in terms of how long you've been with the Verona Police Department and anything else you'd like to add. Officer Stoll?
Yeah, Brad Stoll, the school resource officer for this school year. I've been with Verona PD going on 8 years now. This was the agency that hired me straight out of college. I guess took a chance on me. And I'm happy they did. I really enjoyed my time with the school district this year. It's been nothing short of phenomenal and quite frankly, nothing like I thought it was going to be. I was, I'll be the first to admit I was very nervous coming into the position this year and just kind of what the partnership was going to look like. And then throughout this year, I've just been nothing short of amazed at just how everyone has treated me, both at our individual school sites and at the district office level. Everyone has been phenomenal to work with. So I thank you all for that.
Chief Dresser.
David Dresser, been the police chief for 4 years now, roughly. Verona Wildcat class of '88. So been around for a while. You all look familiar. I think I've met you all before, so I think you know who I am. It's an honor and privilege to be here and to see that the SRO program is going well. We get nothing but positive feedback at our house. The program and Brad doing an excellent job. Our Wildcat squad, I'm glad that's being well received as well. We got mixed feedback when we proposed it. And not everybody saw the picture, saw the vision, and so we found a way to get it done. And I'm glad we did because again, we're getting lots of positive feedback with that initiative. So I don't really have anything prepared for tonight. I'm here to support Officer Stoll and to make myself available to all of you.
I think it's also important to note Jeremy Hatfield, our investigations lieutenant, who is my direct boss, couldn't be here tonight. He's at Fort McCoy for training all week. But he and Chad work directly hand in hand on pretty much everything. And so I think a lot of this year, the success goes to Chad and Lieutenant Hatfield working together too.
All right, let's jump into this. We do have 111 sides, as our superintendent reminded us. The Wildcat squad is leading the track team, getting them to the edge of town on Thursday, right?
Thursday night, 4:30.
All right, perfect. I did want to start off by just continuing to remind the board that the safety and security of our school district, in particular high school in Badger, when we're talking about these fine folks, is a team effort. And we've got our security team there, Alan, Derek, German, and Dewan for the high school team have had an outstanding year. Vernon Brown holds down Badger and is working with both Badger and Core on a daily basis. And these guys are great and work hand in hand with Officer Stoll, building relationships, sharing information. And I think, and Brad, we've got a little time here for Brad to share a little bit more about his year. That was something that I think Officer Stoll and Brad had to learn this year. He hadn't necessarily worked on a day-to-day basis with a bigger team like that, and how important it was to build relationship with those guys. Those are really your eyes and ears of the school district, and in particular high school, and they had a great year. And they are just as responsible for making our school feel safe as Officer Stoll or our administrative team. They're here every day, walking the halls, putting in lots of steps, and they're outstanding. I asked a few of our students and staff members to plop some quotes. This was Officer Stoll didn't know I was going to do this. I am not going to read this to you, but this is a variety. I think you kind of pull out some of the student words out of this. We've got the middle one, which I really like. He's nice and always happy. Is like this cute little third grader from Sugar, who's on the next slide. As Officer Stoll is handing out a ticket or a sticker. Had a scooter violation. But anyhow, the quotes up here I certainly think are an excellent year in review for how Brad was welcomed into our school district, and certainly super appreciated. So I encourage you to take the time to go through that. We've got some good pictures of Officer Stoll in the mix all year here. We did want to give Brad just a little bit. This is a summary of the newsletter we've included in board docs. Officer Stoll, I don't know if you have things you wanted to highlight there or stories from the year in review that you wanted to just make sure the board and community were aware of. As you can see, they're handing out stickers at lunch, so I made it a point to visit every elementary school at least once, including Stone and Prairie over in Fitchburg. Didn't want to forget about them over there. And so I am over 2,000 stickers this year that I've given out. I went through 2,000 rolls, 1,000 roll of stickers. So that is a lot of stickers. So that's something that I had a lot of, joy doing. Even kindergarten up through the 5th grade, I wasn't sure how the 5th graders would always react, but they always reacted with joy seeing me there. Some other things that I found a lot of positive feedback for. I started to do speed checks occasionally in the mornings before school. So I would sit out on either side of the high school, kind of pick a side in the morning with a little laser and make it blatantly obvious that I'm checking everyone's speed. So Alan from security would assist me. We would write down the license plates, be able to cross-reference those license plates, and they would get an email home to their parents saying, hey, this is the posted speed limit. This is the speed that your vehicle was observed driving. Please have a conversation with your student to let them know that they need to slow down. And so what we did with that is the second and subsequent second would get a phone call home directly to the parent to ensure that they were receiving the information directly from me. Thankfully, this school year, we did not have any third-time offenders, which I think is very good. We had hypothesized restricting parking at school as being a consequence of that, but we never had any third-time offenders this year, so we never had to roll any of that out. So that's something else that I was very pleased with. That was one of the things that I got complaints right away at the school year is like, the kids are always flying around the school. And so that was something that I think that
it was enforcement, but it didn't involve writing tickets or anything else like that.
And I think it's a great example of really almost a microcosm of the work Brad did this year. He could have easily just been a ticket writing machine on the corner. You could have done that every morning and did not. It was proactive work to make sure that you want to just have kids slow down, eliminate some of the fender benders we saw in the parking lot, and keep everybody safe.
Yeah, and I think we'll talk about it a little bit later too, but just our work in emergency preparedness and just, our repeated meetings of all our, local first responders and just making sure we're prepared has all been stuff that I've really enjoyed, making sure that we're as prepared as we can be for those things that are our worst case scenarios.
Thanks, Officer Stoll. We did promise to bring the board back kind of a year in review in terms of documented interactions with the Verona Police Department. And I after we got this data last week, at the very end of the week, I had Lieutenant Hatfield pull comparative data from the year before. And we had certainly more calls for service. And Brad can talk to you briefly about that. So a call for service goes into essentially your police database, correct? Correct. So anytime he's called into an issue, he takes notes on the day and essentially starts a log for an incident. So 414 times this year, Brad officially documented something he was doing for our school district. 273 calls were not related to truancy, and 141 were related to truancy. So our truancy effort, maybe down the road, that's even potentially another topic the board would be interested in an update. But you do know the last couple of years here, we've put together a campaign for coming to school more often. It is tied to our school report card, and it's certainly very important in terms of student engagement and student outcomes. And Officer Stoll worked very closely with Whitney, our Dean of Students, and our administrative team this year in particular at the high school, and ended up giving some truancy tickets. And the board should know that that is like step 5 in terms of truancy interventions at our school to make sure we're continuing to build essentially truancy fix-it plans before it gets to Officer Stoll's desk. That is a continued work in progress for us. We're going to end up with a new municipal judge here in November. We are very interested in partnering on some more proactive outside the box things to involve families, involve Brad's work to essentially, it is the law, you have to come to school, and continue to be as proactive as possible in the work related to truancy. With that being said, there were 63 times Brad was called into action that essentially there was an incident that rose to the level that enforcement could take place. 22 of those times ended up in a citation being issued. So essentially, as far as the school year goes, twice a month, Officer Stoll ended up writing a ticket. Could have been for something like speeding, could have been for something like a student brought a vape for the 3rd time, and an assistant principal said, we told mom and dad after time 2, if there was a THC vape back in the school, Officer Stoll was going to step in, even though he could have written a ticket on incident 1. And in the end, all of the arrestable enforceable events, Brad said, this is a verbal warning, this is a written warning, or I'm going to document that I could have intervened with a citation, and we're going to let the school handle it. So 2 out of 3 times when we kind of had the cop in the middle of it, Brad elected not to write a citation and elected to have the school handle it, which again, I think is, it kind of shows that he was not here to be a ticket writing machine, in fact, quite the opposite. Back to the data I had Lieutenant Hatfield pull. Last year, we had fewer calls for service because we didn't have a police officer here. But we ended up with 14 disorderly conduct tickets coming, and Brad could have been one of the officers that wrote one of them when he came off the street to do so. And this year we had 5 disorderly conduct tickets, which is usually the time you have a fight or a larger disturbance where we would have ended up calling the Verona Police Department for something that took place in our school. So that got cut by 2/3 just this year, which again, I think shows we're doing the right work. Come to school more often, and if you have a bad day, again, we're running a city of 1,900 students on any given day, and this is the sheriff of that city along with Dr. Cox now. We're not necessarily interested in writing you a ticket every time you step on your toe, which I think is a really good thing. So I think that's, again, promising data. If anything, number of citations did the exact opposite of what some people may have been concerned about when we brought Officer Stoll in.
We just kind of pause there because there's so much that we talked about proactively as a board in anticipation of this role and the idea of not becoming a punitive organization.
Yep.
And we all, with big hearts and empathy, recognize that adolescents make bad choices.
Yep.
And that's just seeing you all work as such a collaborative team to allow some of those stubbing toes, I heard you say, right? That it's not for lack of consequence, but I saw in your newsletter about awareness, not punishment. And I love how you phrased that about giving students a chance to learn without just turning a blind eye. But I'm just so appreciative of just the philosophy that I'm hearing back echoed to us after kind of what we had discussed going into all of this.
And I'd like to say something really quickly. What I really love about the security at Verona is the pulse to the students. Whenever we interact with any of our student population, it's like we interact with security and they know they know the full history, the full story of the student. They're able to articulate to us before we even meet with the student who they are, in fact, and what they're dealing with outside of here. And that's a blessing to be able to meet with security, get that information before we even meet with the student, and we know who we're talking to. So, and I haven't seen that anywhere. Verona does a really nice job of that. So I just want to thank you for that.
No. Those relationships and knowing those students deeply during times of crisis pay giant dividends. If you don't kind of know what making the student tick, when they're having that bad day and we don't have a relationship built, things don't go as well as they could. Yep. We'll zip through this rather quickly, but this is in alignment with state law. We do a couple things a little bit extra here in the Verona Area School District, but we do the standard monthly fire drills, semi-annual tornado drills, quarterly critical incident drills, and then we also did tabletops for the second year now, 2 times a year at every school. Officer Stoll and Lieutenant Hatfield participate in those on a regular basis. I think Brad was maybe in a training for one, otherwise attended every single one we did all year. We've got Officer Stoll. I don't know if you want to intro this cool picture. This was our last fire drill here.
Yeah, so I do have my federal drone license, so I'm able to fly the drone. So actually, you can't see it here, but I actually partnered with the fire department. So we're at the bottom of the screen, just out of view of the camera here. But so I did have one of the lieutenants from the fire department come out, and so we could actually take a video recording of our fire drill from the air, from the outside, so we could see how that evacuation happened. And so what the goal in doing this was to basically see how much space in the parking lot our student and staff body kind of takes up. And that way we can map it out a little bit better, with the theory being, if for whatever reason there is an actual fire at the school, and for example, we need to find Miss Smith's class outside. If we have a general idea of Miss Smith's classroom is on the 2nd floor northeast of the center bridge, mapping it out and having a specific designated area where that class should be, they should be in the front parking lot between these set of 10 stalls. They should be somewhere in there. That way, in the case of a real emergency, we should have a general area that we can go to right away and start yelling out for Miss Smith's class, and we should be able to find them really quickly. That being so that we're not expecting a class to be in the front of the building, but they're actually in the back of the building or something else like that. Just trying to save those seconds in case of an actual emergency. And so by taking this video, we were kind of able to see that. We also identified some other areas of improvement that would pass along to our building emergency response team, like making sure our roadways were completely clear. We had some spillover of some classes that were maybe not wanting to get fully out of the roadway and away. They wanted to stay kind of close to the building, maybe get back in, and just some feedback that we got from being able to see here that if there was a fire truck emergency vehicle coming through, technically the road was a little bit blocked. Obviously, I think our students would move out of the way with the air horn being blasted at them by a fire truck, but just those little rooms for improvement.
Thank you. As a reminder to the board, we implemented a slightly different standard response protocol this year. This was brand new for our school district. All staff training, all student training all year, and we drilled it nonstop for the year. The board actually, some of you actually attended one of our reunification drills. So that was a work in progress for the year. Reminder, we told the board we were going to implement Navigate 360, which is a software tool with an app that has essentially all of the stuff stored. When Nate has to turn in our compliance report on a 3-year basis, all of that stuff exists in Navigate 360. So that's been successful, but a continued work in progress. There was an example that we shared with the board in terms of what we were doing. This was a country view drill for a lockdown when they were taking attendance. This is our monthly meeting with all of our first responders, EMS, fire, the Fitchburg Police Department, and the Verona Police Department. Brian Cox typically attends. I'm there. Michael LeCount's there as well. There's Lieutenant Hatfield sitting next to Officer Stoll. This is our monthly check-in. Just more than anything, it is information sharing and relationship building, but this has been very, they're all invited as well to all of our safety, all of our tabletops. Here are the tabletops we did all year, and lots of first responders attend those. We find them very useful, get into our school, build relationships with staff members, pose questions that maybe we haven't thought of. I, for the most part, along with Michael, build those scenarios out and bring them in cold for school staff to discuss. And as the year went on, they got kind of worse and worse, like your worst nightmare in terms of something that could happen at lunch that we never want to have happen, but we're going to at least talk about it to make sure we're prepared and ask some questions about it. So those were incredibly useful all year long. A reminder to the board, we've got Wisconsin Act 143 related to school safety. For the most part, Nate, Michael, and myself are the ones tracking that work. Nate helps us with the compliance piece when we have to hand it into DPI on a 3-year cycle. Nate, we have to be back by December 31st, essentially, to get the board to sign off on it.
Yeah, within the 3 years, and 3 years since you guys had last voted on it, which might have been like December 12th, 2020, December something.
So we'll likely be back sometime late fall, early winter, and it will not be a full presentation like this. It will essentially be the board viewing our district-wide safety plans, records of our drills, and sign off on the fact that we're doing this work. But we're presenting it to you a couple of times a year, so you're aware of it. So we've got that ahead of us. We're going to continue summer planning, and again, this is nonstop work that you have to continue to refine and stay on top of, or you fall behind and all of the progress we've made can quickly slip. We are here to answer any questions that you haven't already asked.
I just want to make a comment that helps with the Always There Fair planning process with our gender and peace committee. And thank you for Officer Stoll for attending and having a table. My family came up. We were again welcoming and happy. And I saw lots of other families also go there as well. But during the planning process, there was a concern about these political times and whether we're going to be safe as a community. And absolutely, your presence there provided that safety. And again, as we talked about earlier, as we were contemplating this program last year, one of the main concerns was making sure that all of our students feel safe, and that is exactly what you provided. So I want to thank you for that.
I appreciate it, and thanks to the planners for reaching out to me, because we did have a couple meetings with some of the staff advisors at the high school during the day to kind of go over my perspective on safety and security and some things that they could implement beforehand in the event, just to make sure that we thought about things before they happened in the worst case scenario that they do happen. When we're doing it live, it's not at least our first time thinking about it. So I thought it was really good that we sat down and kind of thought that through beforehand.
I think there was a police car up front that had some artwork on it. My kids saw it and I'm like, oh, love the car. So, I think well done.
Thank you.
I just want to share coincidentally, I think it was just in the last week, I saw a New York Times article from another state that was drawing attention to, I'm going to say policing in schools. Because sadly, that was absolutely what the article was talking about. And I just was so multitude of emotions about seeing things happening elsewhere that really reflects everything we didn't want this to be. And then being able to come to this table to have these conversations and to re-educate our community about what an amazing blessing this partnership is and the impact we're having on students. The no news is good news. I literally hear nothing about this topic as a board member, and that to me means there isn't reason for people to feel concerned right now. And I know that's a generality, but right, I've heard nothing. So yeah, it was just a really shocking thing to see, and then to just extend my gratitude to all of you, to our administrative team, to Chief, Officer Stoll. Just the fact that our students see you as just a light and a joy in our building is just amazing. So just a lot of gratitude.
Yeah, thanks for that, Jen. I think the policing in school can get rolling when the rest of the folks in charge of the relationships and the decorum in our building turn to Officer Stoll and expect Officer Stoll to maintain order in our hallways. That isn't his job. His job is to build relationships. When we have a bump in the road, he intervenes and helps us sort through it. But it's not his job on a daily basis to maintain decorum in our halls. And it can go south in a hurry, and he would hate his job if people were turning to him and saying, why do you have so many kids in the hall? Why are they so loud? They just swore, write them a ticket. That's not happening here, and it can't. So but it takes us continuing to tend to this to make sure it stays as positive as it is.
The last thing I wanted to say, I appreciate how incognito you are in the school. That is not this security police presence. Like when I saw you in the school, I was Officer Stoll right there. Just blended right in.
Yeah, he's not in full blues every day.
Exactly. And I think that releases or eases some of the anxiety that some students may have.
Yeah, like I shared before, I think at our last board meeting, I like to work just kind of in the atrium as much as possible. Based on whatever's going on, sometimes I do need the privacy of being locked away in my office, and that's just the nature of the job sometimes. But I do try to set up as much as possible in the atrium and just be that visible presence. And like Chad said, if a kid comes up to me, I'm not telling them to get back to class. If they're talking to me after 5 minutes, I might say, okay, now it's time to get back to class. But I want them to come up to me and to have those discussions. And it's amazing the amount of questions that exist that they've just never been able to ask.
Right.
And just
You're a part-time lawyer lots of days.
yes, yes, I am.
Yeah.
Yes, the amount of questions that I got from the auto shop on, can I modify this on my vehicle? I don't think so. I'm not a trooper, I don't know that exactly, but so I think just having that access, and like I said, as much as possible, I want to be accessible. And it goes for staff too. I've actually been amazed at the amount of staff that have come up to me with questions just about a lot of general legal stuff and just scenario-based questions on what if this, what if that. And I think that just comes out to just having the access readily available. And I try to be out there as much as I can, just, based on my availability, everything else, because I do cover all the other schools. So I'm not always at the high school. Sometimes I get called to some of our other buildings as well.
We talk about everyone who works with our students, scholars in all capacities as being an educator, and just how you just explained that, you're on our education team.
Yeah,
So,
yes.
thank you.
I would like just to say thank you for the transparency that you're bringing to this, both, especially the BPD and with our BASD team. So the transparency is building trust, and that is something that is, I'm seeing reflected in, again, the lack of comments. The comments that I do get are about the Wildcat Cruiser, and a lot of positive comments, which I was kind of like, that is pretty cool. And it's and what's cool is that it's a visual representation of the partnership that BASD and BPD have, which builds trust in the community that everybody's on the same page for safety as opposed to punitive measures. And that clearly comes back to, again, the transparency that you've come to this with and the trust that you built. So thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to thank all of you for giving us the opportunity to be in the school. As we started the presentation, it was a bit of a gamble. Not sure how it was going to be received. And, we went into the mindset that acknowledging this is an educational facility, and that is the, primary effort. We want to be here for safety first, building relationships second, and enforcement is third. And then there's, a variety of ways we can do that enforcement. So I am very pleased with Brad and how he is carrying out our mission, and just grateful that you gave us that opportunity. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Shifting to the growth and development update. If it's okay, while the team is settling in, if I just kind of ground us back a little bit and like where we are, kind of for the community's sake, but even for board members, we had a lot of material to preview. Thank you for the slides, all the links. As a recap board, I think prior to this kind of coming back to review curriculum, we got to share a lot of philosophical frames and thoughts back when the committee was coming together to review our curricular resources, and then with the charge of this team that's going to be before us about making recommendations for curricular resources moving forward. I'm excited to hear the updates, and I feel very rest assured, having previewed the depth of the things that you have in the links, that we're going to hear reflected back, kind of all of those previous things that we really elevated. And I am saying we, and I want to draw attention to that I feel like our board was really philosophically aligned in ways with this moving toward your group that I'm really excited about and proud of. So I just want to kind of ground some of that and then turn it over to you all.
Awesome, thank you for that, Jen. Yeah, so excited to be here, take you through the halfway point of the slide deck tonight. For slide 50, if that's helpful for anyone. But excited to share a bit about human growth and development. The slides and the curriculum renewal process will seem very similar to you all. You've seen it for science, you've seen it for social studies. We really followed a similar process this time. The differentiating factor for human growth and development is that unlike our language arts curriculum or our social studies or our science, the board wasn't necessarily approving the selection we made. You were giving us permission to purchase that because it was over the threshold you needed. Human growth and development is different and is the only curricular resource that is fully within the board's purview. And so following the direction of the board based on the committee that we held last year and getting the input of our community, bringing that back to the board, and then taking the charge from the board to then go forth and go through this curricular renewal process has really been our the way in which we followed along with this. And so to your point, Jen, we're here back tonight, again, following back up with the board, sharing our recommendation, but knowing that this is the area where we get to test out. Here's what you heard. Here's what we heard from you. Here's how we've carried out that process. Are you seeing alignment, and then ultimately getting to vote on that moving forward. So excited to have the team that was charged with helping us move forward in that curriculum renewal process with us here tonight. So you have Adam Zinkstein, Director of Pupil Services, Mary Hardin, who's a new educator mentor and has just a depth of instructional practice knowledge that was super helpful in this process. And then Laura Marty, one of our elementary school nurses, who helps to deliver this content and help us to think about what's medically accurate, and brings that lens. So gratitude to that team, knowing that they spent some time, and we'll walk you through so you get to see each of those team members. But know that it was a big charge and not a traditional, this is not a place where we have curriculum vendors knocking down our door, sending us lots of emails, asking us to adopt things as we do in science and social studies and language arts. The team really was charged with having to go out, think about what was in the state statute, build some standards, think about what is our philosophy as a district and what we heard from the board, and then match the resources with that. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Adam to get us started.
Thank you. So in our curricular resource adoption process, followed some very similar guidelines and commitments as with other curricular areas. And so these are some things that we remain committed to as a district in any curricular resource review and adoption cycle, and have very much guided our work on our team. Also drawing back on, again, this has been a 2-year process from the kind of board designated ad hoc advisory team, and then the feedback that they gave to our board that our board then summarized with guidance for us that then we made a part of our process. Can see linked in here the summary of that feedback last year, right around this time of year. Can see linked in state statute here, which is something that guides all of this instruction, and we must meet and then can see below summarize the feedback that we get directly from our board that became a part of the process that we use to review the options available and ultimately make the recommendations that we will make today.
And thank you for that reminder, 2 years, wow. Reviewing the feedback and the questions, like reading that again was so helpful to me to get grounded back in all the previous discussions that we had leading into this kind of preview tonight. So thank you.
And we hope that through this presentation today, coming back to this slide, you will see those bottom 4 things very much a part of the things that we're going to speak to when we make those recommendations. That idea of valuing a consistent structured curricular resource, one that allows for improved family access and transparency, that uplifts student voice, is much more inclusive than our current options, and recognize the importance of just developmentally appropriate and inclusive content. Those things are not mutually exclusive. So you can see our amazing team, joined by 2 of those team members today. We are lucky to have 2 nurses, 2 counselors, 2 health teachers, all folks that live in supporting and directly providing this instruction. We had 2 from elementary, 2 from middle, 2 from high school. And then Leila Tabrizi joined us, teaches that instruction in Spanish. And then Ricky Conwell does some work in supporting essential elements for some of our students with IEPs in this instruction too. So we had a very diverse team in input across levels and roles. So before each meeting, we took time to ground ourselves and review what our purpose was and what our purpose wasn't. It was very important to ground the direction that we were given from the board, but most importantly, state statute. Our team existed in this process to make sure that we were identifying and recommending a resource that meets our standards that we've adopted as a district and meets state statute, and to identify a curricular resource that allows us to teach and assess those standards at the grade levels where instruction takes place. We are very clear with our team that we are not an advocacy group making ideological decisions for our district. That is the charge of the board, as well as we're not making decisions, and we saw a lot of things in the different curricular resources about grade levels that might support that. For the purpose of our team, we are making a decision based on the grade levels we currently teach in, which are 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, 9th grade, and 11th grade. And can see again, state statute guides the process by which all of this plays out. And so the other thing that we did not make any recommended change to is the way that this instruction takes place in our district, we are very currently normed in providing instruction to full classes. We are not separating genders to do this instruction, and we make no recommendation as a team to change that. So here's the scope of our meetings. We began meeting in early February, and our meetings carried through late April. We began by spending an entire few hours grounding in state statute. That was very important for our team to fully understand that. Our next meeting was grounding in the standards that were going to be guiding this decision-making and the guidance given from our board from the last year of ad hoc advisory committee work and discussion that we had here at these meetings. From there, using state statute, our standards, and our board guidance, we crafted review criteria to use with the different vendors that we were going to explore potential adoption for. So we began that with our first vendor at meeting 3, and then carried that through with our existing vendors, selecting finalists and an identified plan to pilot a lesson from each of the curricular areas. From there, we got feedback from those that did those pilots. We gathered feedback from staff and generated some very specific gender questions based on the careful review we did up to that point. And then we had individual meetings with each of our 3 vendor finalists that led to our final recommendation as a team.
So although Adam just gave us a high level view of our process, I'm going to highlight some of the things that make our process unique. Even though it follows the same process of all the other curricular renewal teams, the unique nature of human growth and development, just wanted to highlight a few things. So like Adam said, in our first few meetings, grounding ourselves in statute and standards, because our board specifically told us and gave us these charges to have a more consistent and structured curriculum, to do all these things, we needed to, again, make sure that everyone was rooted in our standards and our statute, because, again, very important. So I just put them up there on the board in case we needed to review them. One of the things that we did specifically was to actually spend time processing, not just reading them, but actually unpacking them. So in order for us to decide if this resource that we were looking at actually met the standards, we needed to actually know how to read the standards. And one of the cool things about our group of
educators on our team is not everyone has a more traditional teacher role, right? So Laura may not actually work with standards in her day-to-day as an elementary school nurse. She may does a million things. So making sure that we actually all understood that. So that's kind of evidence of our work there. Once we had a good understanding of the statute and the standards, we needed to really process and think about making that evaluation tool. Again, similar to all the other renewal teams, but again, we wanted to really pay attention to what made our area unique. So we needed to consider a lot of different things. So when we made this criteria tool, of course, we had to ground ourselves in the actual language of the state statute. We needed to think about the things that the board head and ad hoc team has put forward to us. We also, because of things like wanting to be more inclusive or developmentally appropriate, we need to really think about things like our equity framework and our teaching for learning frameworks, and the new standards that we had. And then another thing that we spend a lot of time in is understanding what truly makes a high quality instructional material, right? We say the word curriculum or curricular resource. A lot of people have a lot of different feelings or understandings, but we needed to read the research on what actually is that. And we spent some time doing that. Based on that, we used our knowledge of that to put it all together to create our evaluation tool. Some things are very similar to any of the other curricular resource adoption tools that you may have seen. Things that I think are really specific, again, not just standards, but our understanding of our statutes. One of the things is that we needed to make sure that our resources that we were looking at and recommending were going to be medically accurate. So something that was real important to us was up to date and will be continued to up to date. So making sure that there's evidence of that. And then also understanding what inclusive and culturally responsive looks like in this situation. That may be different than science or ELA. So really thinking carefully about what does that look like in this realm. As we did that, we reviewed and rated 3 curricular resources. All the resources had actually pretty similar ratings. So we went forward and piloted all of them, all 3 of them. Making sure to be in compliance with existing statute. We did pilot a number of lessons and received feedback largely from the teachers from the lesson. And really there were a few that really rose to the top in looking at not only that medical accuracy, that inclusivity, but also what's engaging and reasonable for a teacher to use, because human growth and development is happening whether it's in a short little lesson with 4th grade or as a part of a larger block of instruction, right? So making sure it was flexible. So that's the feedback that we got. And as Adam already touched on, that vendor presentations and our final recommendations is that we actually worked really hard to really consider the questions that we were asking because we needed to ask more than just you know, is it easy to use or is it engaging? But we needed to really dig into some of these things. We also were able to really listen to vendors, as well as one of the resources does not have a vendor, but rather we were able to actually talk to real people who use the materials. So that was a unique and really cool experience that we had. Once we did all of that, like we said before, the people on the team got to review on their own all of the different things that we've been looking at, whether it was they looked at our standards, they looked at the statute again, all of the examples and desk copies of the resources, our compiled pilot feedback. We had compiled answers of all of the either notes from the vendor presentations, as well as many, actually most of the vendors wrote detailed responses to our questions on their own and sent it back to us really thoughtfully. And so the team was able to review those, think about them, and make their own recommendations.
So with that, we have recommendations for the board today. And feel that each of these resources, knowing that these standards are the curriculum, align very well with the criteria that was given to us for consideration, as well as attending to both state statute and our identified standards. And so at the elementary level, our recommendation is that we adopt the 3 Rs, and that is a resource from Advocates for Youth. You can see here some of the areas through our long, many weeks of evaluation where we felt that this resource really stood out. Things that I will call out beyond just availability in Spanish, which is a big thing in our district where some of this instruction might happen in 2-way immersion classrooms. was the developmental appropriateness of it while being medically accurate, just engagement and the ability for just teacher use, as well as opportunities for some flexible, diverse assessments. And that's something, if we teach it, we need to be able to assess student understanding of that. This lends itself really well to that. Some things I will.
I was gonna say, I think we can go through these next two pretty quickly, just further information for the board, a bit more about each of those curricular
Yep.
resources.
Yep, and what I will point out, specific to some of the charge we were given is just the inclusivity here, and the design of the instruction and the family involvement piece. This is a resource that has many homeschool connections that support conversations at home, knowing that we are here to teach information, we are not here to teach values. That is a conversation that this curricular resource supports, conversations at home with families. At the secondary level, our recommendation is to adopt ETR Health Smart. What makes this curricular resource unique is very much like our instruction. It is a health curriculum where there is a human growth and development unit embedded within it. ETR Health Smart is a health curriculum with a human growth and development unit embedded within it. You can see all the areas where this curricular resource met our clear evidence on our evaluation tool. Many were very similar to the 3 Rs. And some information here also of where this resource we feel really much stands out. We'll say again, the idea of inclusivity, cultural responsiveness, and again, those strong family-school connections. This is another resource that supports conversations about this content with families at home to encourage those discussions, teaching information and facts, supporting those values and beliefs conversations at families' homes. So to support instruction here, we have set aside 2 days in August to support those that are leading this instruction, our nurses, our health teachers, and in some cases, our counselors. Based on our board vote today.
Okay. So with that, we'll take you all the way back to the guidance that we provided, or that you all provided us with at the beginning of this, as Adam reminded us, 2-year process, and really those 4 bullet points that we tried to ground our entire process in, and hopefully you're seeing those reflected in the evaluation tool, the criteria that we used every step along the way, and really checking our final recommendations to make sure that they met each of those bullet points. So we'll pause here, knowing that the board will move forward with the vote at some point, but we'll answer any questions that you have in the meantime.
More of a comment. I'm so glad, Adam, you said the family involvement piece, because when this first became, I don't want to say an issue, but a topic, the main thing I was hearing from parents was their discussion with their child, and in some cases, a lot of cases, it seemed like the student had more information than the parent. And now it sounds like this is bringing it full circle and making sure that they're all on the same page. So this is beautiful. I think that was a not missing piece, but the necessary or essential piece when we started this.
Yeah, that family access and transparency was one of the bullet points, and we looked at resources. Not a whole lot to choose from, and this was one of the layers that we wanted to make sure was really clear so that we can also be transparent with their families about what are the lessons and really give them what they needed to have those conversations at home.
Yes.
I'm grateful for the standardization as well. If we go forward with the adoption of a curriculum, I think that's incredibly critical, and that's some of the feedback that I heard going into this process early on. I would say also the family involvement too. I just went, Mom, you were wrong. We talked about it, you're totally wrong. But I would also love a little more detail. We don't have to go here like great detail, but I love the piece around inclusivity. Can you give me just a little bit more detail about that in regards to grade level and appropriateness? How do we approach that so that we're thinking inclusivity across grades?
It really builds over time. I mean, that's where the developmental appropriateness piece comes in. And so kind of in the upper elementary level, starts to cover kind of that distinction between biological sex, gender identity, sexual orientation, with a real focus on just definitions to help students understand the idea of that, to reinforce that identity, including gender identity is just a natural part of human diversity. I think part of the standards also cover that idea of avoiding the social isolation and bullying that can often be targeted against students who identify in different ways. And so it leans into that and then continues to build from that as students get older to get more into sexual orientation and things like that, just to help support students making healthy choices with their body, regardless of what their identity is. And that's so key. And builds to some kind of heavier topics, looking at which the statute requires that we cover things like sexual violence and making safe decisions, or things that are covered much later. That is not a 4th and 5th grade topic. That's something that we get into later, as well as healthy choices and safe decision-making online and through social media, and different stereotypes that can affect one's sense of self through that, are things that begin at the 4th and 5th grade level and build off of into the school year.
Thank you, and especially around the bullying piece, et cetera. I think this is so important to just that this depth for some students may be the only time they ever have this discussion. And Mom, I love you. I was just joking. If you're listening, thanks.
Mary, I just appreciate how you just framed the whole process. I mean, right, we've recently heard of curricular resource processing and aligning the standards and the standards deep dive and everyone being on the same page and piloting. And we've just heard the little added layer of really what you all kind of disentangled, philosophically, statutorily, academically. I mean, so much that your team did. So first and foremost, I can only imagine, captured in like 7 slides, the number of hours that you all did this work. Just, I can tell from the summary, this was not a quick process. So I thank you all immensely, having this board say, we want to trust the educational experts in our district to do this work, to bring a recommendation back to us. Thank you for being that team that did that. So appreciative of the level of detail and information and just the process that you all did. And Laura, I don't want to put you on the spot, but is there anything you want to add? Just, again, with your unique position, like Mary said, that you don't typically live in the land of academic standards, but just any sentiments or thoughts that you want to surface?
I can really just echo a lot of what you just said. It just not to bringing that teacher, educator lens, even though I understand I'm an educator because I'm part of the school district.
Yeah.
So I'm embracing that to the best of my ability. It was really helpful the way that they broke the process down for us so that we made sure we were covering all of the steps as we went through and kept all of those other things, the state statutes, the standards that we were working from in our thoughts as we were really examining the resources. So the process was well thought out and took a lot of time and was done well.
Well, we couldn't have done it without your medical accurate knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you'll be surprised how much inaccurate medical information is out there sometimes.
That is so fascinating.
Yes, it is fascinating. So,
Not just my mom.
yeah. Yeah.
Well, you did have one of the best instructional leaders I think we have in this district sitting next to you. So, yeah.
It was fantastic.
Great
team.
Board members, any further questions? We can kind of jump then into board action if we want to, since we have the team here, we are kind of in the richness of this scenario. I'm going to ground us one more time in kind of where we've been and what our charge is. Any other pieces before I do that? And Amy, I just so appreciate how you kind of grounded and reminded our board and the community. We have voted on science curriculum. We have voted on social studies curriculum for the monetary vote, not for the blessing of what the team chose for curriculum content. So this is a distinct state statute. So if you all don't mind with some of these things that are kind of embedded in state statute, I am going to read to make sure that I do this correctly. So we are going to move into the board action piece then of our human growth and development agenda item. So just a brief reminder, the board previously appointed the statutorial required HG&D ad hoc advisory committee under Wisconsin State Statute 118.019. The committee's charge at that time was to review the district's human growth and development curriculum and to report on the current condition. And we heard areas of strength and areas of improvement at that time. That advisory committee process concluded in May of last year, which we also agreed that was the charge that team did, and we moved on. Following that process, our board directed administration to move into the curricular resource review and adoption process, which is what we just heard about. So tonight, our board's role is not to restart an advisory committee process. We're now being asked to take the statutory action and follow from that work. Under Wisconsin statute 118.019 sub 2, because the district provides human growth and development instruction, the board is charged with establishing the curriculum for that instructional design. So grounding us back in our statutory obligation. At the same time, the statute requires the board to determine whether, and if so, for what subjects, pupils will be separated by gender during human growth and development instruction. And we have a recommendation from this team, and Adam, you've shared current practice along with recommendation. So with all of that said, I'll accept a motion to establish the human growth and development curriculum as presented, including the recommended curricular resources for grades K through 5 and grades 6 through 12 as the district's human growth and development curriculum pursuant to Wisconsin statute 118.019 sub 2, and to accept administration's recommendation that pupils not be separated by gender during human growth and development curriculum and instruction.
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Corby. Any further discussion? All those in favor of, I know there's a slide that says exactly what I said, so I'm going to it so I don't have to read that whole thing again. All those in favor of approving the motion that I said, establishing the curriculum pursuant to state statute that pupils not be separated, signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Thank you again, and please extend our gratitude to the rest of the team members that did this work. Super appreciative. Thank you, board. Yeah. All right, moving on to promissory notes. We get some finance tonight, Mr. Weezy?
This is my last one and done slide. We'll have hopscotch agenda tonight. So after further review, and you know, it always gets messy when you involve lawyers. Nate, plug your ears. We have outside counsel that is our bond counsel. Anytime the school district borrows money, there's typically a bunch of paperwork that comes along with it. We were in touch with our bond counsel prior to all of you reading into the minutes, if you recall, approval of borrowing interest-free money from Lakeridge Bank for the scoreboard.
Mm-hmm.
Upon further review, Alice and our bond counsel got back to us after we read it into the minutes and thought we checked every legal box and said, no, I'm going to send you some more paperwork. So we are here tonight to have you re-vote on the resolution for us to borrow $399,000 and change in an obligation promissory note through Lakeridge Bank at 0% interest to finance that scoreboard, potentially over 10 years. They're actually encouraging us to make minimum payments because then we have kind of more cash in reserve related to fund balance. And Lori has a whole bunch of paperwork to sign after this vote tonight. So that's all I have for you. This is just a re-vote to make sure our bond council's happy with the way the district borrowed money.
Wonderful. So does it then again make sense for us to take that vote right now?
That'd be perfect.
Great. So with language that I have, accept a motion to approve the resolution authorizing the issuance and sale of a $399,722.98 taxable general obligation promissory note.
So moved.
Thank you, Joe. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Meredith. All those in favor of approving the resolution for the authorization of the sale and promissory note, as mentioned, signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Thank you.
Great.
I think we've got some Jen, Joe, and then.
Yep, I have
Juan
all of
Carlos
those things.
signatures
Yep,
afterwards.
thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that revisit.
Rochelle, I'm gonna-
All right.
Just in case there's finance questions, I don't have to shuffle them.
Wonderful.
It's all you. I'll run slides for you.
We've been going kind of around the slides, so making sure we're on, looks like slide 80. Hi, Rochelle.
Good evening. How's it going?
Great, thanks for
I'm not
being
going to be
here.
as exciting as Amy and Dad and the labs, but
But this is exciting.
It is. It is good work, so it's
Top
good.
bond resolution.
Fair. So tonight is a quick overview of the insurance plans that we offer to the employees of the Verona Area School District, as well as 2 actions that we're going to need the board to take tonight. One is considering the renewal of Dean Health Plan, and the second is our long-term disability coverage. So holistically overview, our health insurance plan is through Dean Health Plan. We offer an HMO, a PPO, and a point of service plan, very comprehensive. We switched to Dean Health Plan this last year. So about a year ago, we had a comprehensive switch from GHC to Dean. A majority of our employees are actually enrolled in our health insurance plan. So if we look at our data, 74% of eligible staff are enrolled in our health insurance plan. Of that, 72% are enrolled in family insurance coverage. So a majority of our employees take family coverage. And 96% of our employees are enrolled in the HMO plan, which provides the best coverage and kind of the best management of where people go for healthcare choices. That was a question that was brought up this last year when we moved from GHC to Dean, was the concern that more people would take the point of service plan. And we've seen holistically a majority of our employees are taking that HMO plan, which is really good news for us. Because our plan is so comprehensive, and the commitment that the district has paid or has made to pay 89% of the premiums, I think it's also important for our public to understand how much healthcare is for us here at the district. So a family plan right now costs almost $21,000 a year, and a single plan is almost $7,500 a year. And the district pays 89% of that for all of our employees and family coverage. This is a significant investment in our budget and the well-being of our employees. And I want to thank you for allowing us to be able to invest in this way. This last year, when we created that new relationship with the dean, we built in a 2-year rate cap guarantee. And that rate cap came in at 7.9%. So that means that the dean cannot increase our premiums by more than 7.9%. That's for this year and that's for next year. And what felt like 7.9 seems high actually helped us significantly this year. So as we step into what 26, 27 will look like for us if we stay with the dean, I want to go back a little bit on how health insurance premiums are calculated. We are a large enough group that our premiums are based on our utilization. So we have Dean look at the number of claims that are coming through, what is being utilized, and they tell us what our premiums should be. We also prioritize our employees making strong relationships with their healthcare providers. We have pushed on and on and on how important it is that staff see their doctor at least once a year with their wellness assessments. And when we switched from GHC to Dean, we had a very strong campaign where we wanted employees to start making those relationships regularly. That meant that there were a significant amount of claims that hit our insurance plan so far this year. Every employee, every dependent, every spouse, every person covered has seen their doctor at least once or if on multiple locations. And what we know is our renewal plan is based on claims, and we can only see a certain time frame of claims for when those renewal conversations come in. So Dean is basing our renewal on claims from July 1st through January 31st, about a half a year's worth of claims. But because we've asked everyone to go in and make those relationships, we're actually seeing really high claims utilization. So Dean is saying that we're running at 150%. For every dollar they're collecting in premiums, they're paying out $1.50 in claims. And that is because we've squished in so many people to be able to see their doctors in those first few months that Dean is saying that we're running heavy. And so the rate cap guarantee has actually helped us. If we did not have that 7.9% rate cap guarantee, we would be coming in much higher for renewal premiums for this upcoming year.
Likely double.
Absolutely. I also did some research on other districts in the area who do not have rate cap guarantees and what's happening in the world of healthcare. MMSD just came in at 17.3% for their renewal. Wanakee, who has Dean, came in at 11.9% and they're making plan design changes. DeForest came in at 6.5%. They are the lowest. we're next. Stoughton, it was coming in at 21%, and they are shaking it up and they're making huge plan design changes. Evansville came in at 10.2. ETF looks like it came in at around 11.5. So our 7.9 is still a really good deal for us, even though our utilization was higher. And that utilization is good utilization. But I think this speaks to a bigger problem that we have no control over, which is the world of healthcare. Healthcare costs are rising. We have prescription medication that costs thousands and thousands of dollars a month that are being given to people to extend their life, to keep them happy and healthy and engaged. And we're battling that balance of the cost of healthcare and keeping people happy, healthy. And we have no control as an employer on how healthcare companies are negotiating how much UW is going to charge for a service, how much SSM is going to charge for a service. When a doctor refers someone to one provider or another, we have no control over that. So that rate cap guarantee protects us. So with that, there is work that we still need to do. We would have presented this much sooner, except for the fact that I was still negotiating with Dean on trying to get this down below 7.9. We talked a lot with Dean about the on-site clinic. We asked Dean about other ways that we can drive claims utilization. Do we change our copay structure, or do we try to encourage more people to go to the clinic? And all of those things really didn't get us much for premium changes or those renewal changes because we're running so high right now. The best option for us is to wait a whole another year in hopes that our utilization will spread out a little bit more, which we expect it to do. And next year, we still have that 7.9% rate cap guarantee built in. We will then do a really good job on negotiating next year on what the following rate cap guarantees look like. That has saved us and it will continue to be used to help us control some of these healthcare costs that we have no control over.
And hopefully in another year's time, we've talked about, and Joe, I think you highlighted this, that the on-site clinic data doesn't really create impact toward these conversations until we've obviously had that in play.
Yep,
longer.
for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's my big concern, because part of the way we sold the on-site clinic is it was going to keep our renewal rates down, and yet we still hit the maximum allowable this year. So I'm concerned that in the future, when we get outside of our rate cap, like how can we steer more to the on-site clinic to justify the cost that we're paying for that?
And it is actually kind of the next slide that we were going to talk about was the on-site clinic and that utilization piece.
So really quick, to add on to Joe's, and as you know, we've been on the table with you and I appreciate everything. And the comparative data is very powerful with our other districts, but I have to put this into space, not for this year, but for next year, just so Dean hears this as well. Because we should have issues with the shell game, where in terms of the pitch coming in was, we want your staff to go and use the clinic as much as possible, but then you can't use that desire to have as many people go see their doctors as possible, and then use that against you for rate measurements. And so, to put it at the 154, so it can't be a both ends. So I just wanted on record, so as we play this back next year when we go into negotiations again, let's not play the shell game of wanting this advanced care, knowing that this benefit is long term, but then you're going over the percentage because you're doing exactly what we asked you, what we asked to do.
Completely agree. Hands down.
And Dr. C, just to clarify, I think a lot of what happened this year, many of our employees went to go see their primary care physician.
Correct.
To start. And that hits our books on the renewal rates. Every time you go to see your doctor outside of the on-site clinic. And I think what Rochelle will share here, and I think we're seeing positive trends. Some folks, I being one of them, just got my annual physical. I have a primary physician I've never met. It's on my chart. I don't even know who it is. I went to the on-site clinic for my annual physical, and we'll do it again next year. That didn't hit the books at all. But my wife, for instance, went to see her primary care physician, had a couple follow-up appointments, And those are all outside of our on-site clinic, and all of those are the ones that added up to that 150%.
I get that with when we were doing, and we were as a employee, I had to do it as well. When you got your initial setup to cross over to Dean, they recommended that you go see your primary.
100%.
Okay, that's an important clarification.
Yeah,
I kind of
so-
missed that when you said, so
You're
that came from
correct,
yeah.
Dean
Yeah.
saying that
And
to our
then
staff.
now you can't then go count it against us
Right.
because we followed your recommendation.
Completely agree. Hands down agree.
The whole thing's broken.
Yeah, that is.
I think, another thing I think that needs to be pointed out is the state of Wisconsin's health insurance reserve is well below the target where it's supposed to be, or where we would like it to be, I should say, not where it's supposed to be, because it's the hike in premiums in dental and pharmacy that's depleting I almost called it the annuity reserve, but the health insurance reserve that allows the state of Wisconsin to buy down some of those premiums from the health insurance companies.
Yep.
That's what's happening here. And, you know, the state is trying to figure out strategies to stabilize the fund and build it back up. But until then, we're gonna see this rapid, more increase in premiums.
Yeah, their districts around the state over 20% this year.
And it actually is beyond the health insurance plan. It goes back to the providers. That's where we can make changes at the provider level. And that's where the on-site clinic comes in and allows us to have some control. We will always have employees that will need to go to specialty care. We will always have employees that need to go to OB and surgery and pieces like that. We can't really control that, but we can control who's going to their primary care doctors. And that hopefully, as Dean told us, will help control our renewal rates in the future. So our clinic here has been open for several months. There have been some huge successes. If we just look at primary care visits at the clinic versus if they were to be run through our health insurance plan, we've avoided over $600,000 worth of additional claims that have hit our health insurance fund. It needs to be more. We have saved several $1,000s in new employee physicals. That's a small bucket of money, but it still helps impact our budget at the end of the day. I think I'm slowly starting to pivot, and I think it's important for the board to understand as well. The on-site clinic was twofold. It was to help our healthcare costs, but it also goes back to our strategic framework of employee well-being. And there's some huge wins there that I don't want to lose track of. And one of them actually gets us back to having teachers in front of our students. Every time an employee goes to the clinic, we are saving hours of time that they would be traveling to go somewhere else. And if we just add up all of the visits that have happened this year and we converted them to days, we have saved 250 days of students being in front of their teachers rather than being in front of substitutes. That, while it's not a dollar cost, is immeasurable for student outcomes. And there are other pieces of the clinic that are really valuable to us as well. But we still have room to grow. Our goal with the clinic is that at least 60% of our employees and their dependents enrolled in our health insurance plan access the clinic. We're at 35%, we're halfway there. But that's 718 people that they have seen. 718 people making relationships at the clinic is huge. And that is going to continue to drive employees and their family to the clinic. We also get amazing feedback from our staff when they visit the clinic. I had feedback last week. One employee said this was the best healthcare visit that she has ever had in her entire life. Because our clinic providers are going deep into caring for our staff members, digging deep into their healthcare and really helping them manage their holistic well-being. We see here on the screen, you can see where utilization has been. Last October, November, and into December, we had really high utilization where people were going in for those wellness assessments. It dropped in December, January, February. We were trying to figure out what it was. And we have pivoted, and now we're having our primary care providers at the clinic go out to the schools to meet patients and to meet employees. And we can see here in April that our numbers almost doubled because our providers are now making relationships in the buildings rather than people coming to them. We're continuing to look at things differently. We're trying to send out different communication to get employees to go to the clinic. And that's only going to get better as the good word gets out on how important the clinic is. And so I will say, we're not done, we're not finished, there is absolute work to do. We are several months in and we know we can do better and we know we can do things differently. It's trying to find that balance of what resonates with people and how to get people to go to the clinic. So we're going to pivot just for a minute and then we can have more questions at the end. I'd like to talk a little bit about life and disability. Our current carrier is through a company called The Standard. We have been in a several-year long-term contract with The Standard. We are up for renewal with The Standard as of July 1st. The Standard came back and they recommended a 55% increase to long-term disability insurance. And that is twofold. I think it's the state of education, the state of our work where we know we have high stress jobs and people are out for lots of different reasons. So The Standard said, we're going to increase your rates. We went out to bid for that and found another carrier that can match the exact same plan design. 90% of pre-employment disability earnings will still be given under this new carrier. We're literally switching a carrier name to be able to continue the same coverage that we've got at almost the exact same premium as what we're paying right now. So we are recommending we switch to National Insurance Services. The board needs to vote on the long-term disability portion of this switch because it's above the $250,000 minimum for the board to be able to make that decision.
Thank you for your work on that. It would have been easy to rinse and repeat, and taking the 55% increase and said send us the bill and you didn't do it.
Are there any scenarios where an individual person would feel that change of carrier?
Not at all.
Okay.
Potentially if they were out on
Like
long-term
if they're currently,
disability several years ago and they're going to do a new claim. People currently on long-term disability will stay with The Standard, so they won't change. It's just new claims
Got
as
it.
of July 1st that will go to MS.
Okay, thank you.
Questions?
Yeah, I appreciate all the efforts to keep growing the onsite clinic. Just thinking creatively to try to have that be the impact that we sort of intended it to have and to see how that continues to play out. And I mean, you talked about this and we have talked about this, but I would still say that the 250 school days where we've preserved our classroom educators in spaces, that's a monetary saving, depending on if we're literally paying for a substitute teacher on a day or paying for internal coverage. So yeah, again, minor and still.
The other thing that Rochelle had mentioned, and we'll let you guys go, that's been really nice, is if we have a bump or a bruise during the workday that has the potential of a workers' comp claim, now we're not sending someone to urgent care. Lots of times we're able to get them in, sometimes they can walk right there and be seen, which has been really nice.
Right.
I think one piece that is hard for us to drive utilization is that our health plan is so rich. At a $20 copay, $20 doesn't drive people to go to the onsite clinic versus go to their primary care doctor. And that was one thing we explored, was increasing our copay structure to $40 or $45 to help drive people to the clinic. And we really can't do that because specialty care still needs to be with Dean Health Plan. And we can't have a specialty copay less than a primary care visit copay. So that was one push. The other push that we thought about was changing our urgent care copay to drive people to go to the clinic. It's free to go to the clinic. It's $20 to go to urgent care. Let's change that to $40 or $50. And it was a 0.03% decrement to change urgent care. So it also is just really interesting that we're trying to find ways to drive people to the clinic, and monetarily, we still haven't found the right balance on what that actually is.
The stuff makes a difference if we're running at 92% next year.
Right.
Then you're picking at the edges more.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Rochelle. There is a vote. Do we want to keep doing our pattern that we've been doing? Okay, great. I'm going to scroll down.
Yes, I do.
Great. I would accept a motion based on that previous discussion to accept the employee health insurance recommendation as presented. Thank you, Meredith. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Corby. All those in favor of approving the employee health insurance recommendation as presented signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, and then one more vote, again, based on the information from Rochelle, I'd accept a motion to approve the employee disability insurance recommendation as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Joe. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Christopher. All those in favor of approving the employee disability insurance recommendation as presented signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Thank you all. Hey, it's that time of year.
We're back. We're back.
We now have a little annual cadence with our AGR report.
One more thing we're fitting in before the end of the school year.
Yeah.
So AGR reports, we're here tonight just with one slide as an overview. You received the reports as a PDF. A reminder, AGR stands for Achievement Gap Reduction. This is specific funding that we receive for our 4 neighborhood elementary sites for K-3 programming. Last year we did our application and renewal and gave a more extensive explanation of AGR and how it benefits our sites. But each year then we're required to capture data in the fall and capture data in the spring, and then be able to present that to the board and ultimately submit that. Again, the funding helps to lower class sizes and support coaching as some of the strategies by which we support our K-3 students. So Teresa Taylor, our Director of K-8 School Supports here tonight, just to help share a bit more about, you have the reports, you have the data, so you needed a really data-rich presentation on our 111 slide evening, but just to share what has the conversation been at schools, how are we making sense of that data, and what are we doing as our next steps?
Great. So just a reminder that we use AIMSweb, so that's a screener, and when we're looking at screener data, it's meant to look at discrete skills. So that is when we're looking at individual student skills that can result in universal instruction practices, it can result in small group instruction or individual student instruction, as well as coaching opportunities. So we're looking at just really specific skills and then how we're monitoring those. We monitor them by using AIMSweb 3 times a year. So we're continuing to look at the growth over those benchmarks. And then we also do progress monitoring for students who have specific skill building. They may have weekly or bi-weekly progress monitoring of that specific skill that then the coach, the resource individual, and the classroom teacher can look at that specific discrete skills growth. And then we're also just looking at it within Universal. So SAVIS is also building on all of these skills within our universal instruction. And so when we look at their exit tickets and their end of unit data and all of the work that they're doing in their student instructional workbooks, then we can continue to look at those specific skills throughout. So when I talk to some of the individuals that were doing this work, just to help you understand the story, last year I think I told you the thousands of assessments that we did. This time I thought I would tell you about some really great work that's happening with our teachers. So we look at this as unfinished learning. If we are seeing the data that's showing reading nonsense word fluency is having a gap, either for a student or a large group of students in that classroom, then they are looking at that really intentional practice of where can we practice nonsense words. So nonsense words didn't used to be a part of our practice. When I first started teaching kindergarten a long, long time ago, nonsense words were nonsense. You did not do that. Then they came back around and they were a great teaching strategy and we used them and assessed them. And then they became a no-no again, and now they're back on. And we do learn a lot from it because it's helping us understand how children are making sense of decoding and all of those really individual sounds. So by this being a little bit of a new practice, again, it gave our teachers and our coaches an opportunity to think about where will that show up, where we can just embed it into the practice. And one of the things that one of our teams came up with was the morning meeting. Morning meetings, super engaging for teachers and for students, and that you can build in so many different parts of that message, and nonsense words can be a part of that, as well as in just even lineup routines. I think we used that example last year for you. We have many, many transitions in an elementary day, and so we try to be proactive with that. So we're thinking about letter sounds, our numbers, vocabulary words, whatever we can do to just keep the learning and keep the children engaged as we're transitioning from one place to another. And this particular teacher used those two strategies and found great growth when they then monitored those skills later in the year. Another one was increasing letter sound fluency. So that particular teacher worked with their coach they were in a coaching cycle, and they looked at during their collaboration during the Sabbath and the Keys to Literacy resources. So went back to the resources to really think about where can we find this specific skill set so we can just elevate it, making sure that we're never missing this part of the instruction that day, and that we're really coming back to looking at how we're making that progress. And that also led to some really great small group instruction with some intentional teaching of those skills. And then again, we're able to progress monitor that within just the learning that was happening universally, but then also the progress monitoring for some of the focus students that were needing that skill set. And then another area that there was some unfinished learning was just the increase in fluency. So just a reminder that these tests, the majority of them that we engage in the screener are timed, which is also kind of ebbed and flowed in education. And I just want to remind all of us, because I have to remind myself of this sometimes when we're testing the littles in this timed fashion, is that the importance of fluency is to really make sure that their brains are not stopping to sound out or to do those discrete skills, that their brains already automatically are doing that, so that it can really engage in the cognitive lift of those really deep learning opportunities. So that's why we time, that's why it's important, that's why we are looking at fluency. So that really results in some coaching cycles, again, looking at the resources we're using and how we can build fluency, but also giving children the model. So the read aloud that teachers do, I'm sure all of you remember the read aloud that your teachers did. I still remember multiple that my teachers read to me. And so that is a really important structure for children to hear reading fluently. So you can hear your teacher read it, you can hear your children read it, and then they're practicing them themselves. So we don't want to miss the opportunity of hearing and modeling that in other ways. So that partnership really thought about what they were doing within their read aloud and then how they were engaging students and making sure that they had the opportunity as well. One of the things that really rose to the surface for me when I was talking to some of the teachers and the instructional coaches about how they were engaging in this data was the student agency. That came out with every partnership that I talked through, because when we're really looking at specific skills and we're having multiple opportunities to teach through that skill and then monitor the skill, they are bringing the children into that. They're watching their data. They're having a lot of opportunities to see that grow in that specific skill set. And so they were owning it. They were owning that skill and the data and really being proud of the growth that they were making. And so I thought that was a really wonderful opportunity that we are focusing on that goal setting and student agency without necessarily even that being a specific goal of the assessment. So that was a couple of stories and ways that we are thinking about the data, because it does take us a while to get it. But I do believe that the teachers and the instructional coaches and resource teams and just the school teams in general are really taking this information to make sure that we're helping children learn the specific skill sets that they need to show this reading growth.
So with that, we'll open up for any questions that you might have.
I just appreciate that we dialogue around these. You know, these can be in board consent. They're not results policies, right? We're not evaluating any practices here. But to your point, there's so much data collection happening, seeing some of the things that you all and the practitioners and the teachers are using with these reports. I just appreciate being able to hear that as a board member, rather than just seeing kind of a dense data-driven report that I just, can easily say, yes, we did it. So thank you for just the added time that you all bring, being able to talk to these reports to us. And yeah, I just appreciate this. All right. So how about we vote? I would accept a motion to approve the achievement gap reduction or AR reports as presented.
So
Thank you, Meredith. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, John. All those in favor of approving the AGR reports as presented signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so we've finished the superintendent's report officially, which means we are actually to public comment in the agenda, which I am not aware of any public comment this evening. Okay, so moving to board action, I'm gonna go through and just be sure. So we have done our vote on human growth and development curriculum. We did our vote on the promissory note. We did our vote on employee health insurance recommendation and disability insurance, and we just took our vote on the AGR reports. So now we are to R6. Yes.
Were there two separate votes on health and then the?
Yes, we did take two separate votes. Yep. Yep, so now we are on results policy 6 strategic framework. Corby, thanks so much for being our note taker. And and team, R6.
Just really quick, first, Kirsten, I apologize, you know, we don't have staff members wait this long.
Yeah.
To speak, to it, but again, it was very, very robust book.
Sorry.
Pieces of apologies. I know
No,
you
there's
got-
no national championship game on tonight.
Excellent.
And we started the day with cake. So we got,
Yes,
yeah,
we
we
sure
started
did.
the day with
Cake for
cake
Mr.
together,
Bruner,
cake
yeah.
for Mr. Bruner. So we were ready from the onset having cake for breakfast.
I may have got back for second, so.
I hope you did, for sure.
Yeah, well, lots of celebrations at this time of year. We've had lots of Costco cake, and this is our last results policy, R6 with the strategic framework. Also feels like it should be a celebration. Maybe we should have ended the day with cake as well. But I'm excited to be here tonight to share a bit about our progress on the strategic framework. And of course, I'm having Ms. Hohen join us, obviously as the proud new principal of Sugar Creek, but also Kristen served on the initial strategic framework committee back in 21-22 as an instructional coach at the time. But as we've reflected on our strategic framework and where we've been over the last 3 years, that it was really important to bring the voices of some of those original committee members to the surface to help us reflect on what is the progress we made, what was the initial vision and intent, and where have you actually seen that come to life. So similar to all of the other recent results policies, you did receive a large results policy and then the video. R6 was one that every results policy that we presented from R2 and beyond, we also made connections to. So when we were presenting language arts, where did we see inclusive teaching and learning? When we were presenting math, where were there evidence of student agency? So we've tried to make those connections as we learn. But as a reminder, R6 is divided into our 5 areas. These are our 5 priority areas of the strategic framework: community collaboration, inclusive teaching and learning, student agency, value and belonging, and wellness and mental health. In looking at the key findings, which you saw in the video, so I won't reiterate, but just recognizing overall it was a little bit of a stretch. Many of the data sources that existed in 21-22 don't exist anymore. Right? ACT Aspire used to be the test. Forward has renormed. We've changed our school climate survey. So we struggled a little bit with some of that comparative data, but did do our best to think through. There were questions that were on the old survey vendor that we have the exact same questions now, and we were able to see some really significant growth there, and we're excited to highlight that. Things like the forward exam, even though it's been renormed, we actually are exceeding the statewide averages. We're increasingly exceeding them, right? So our percentage above the statewide average has continued to grow. So yes, the norms change, so comparing ourselves to ourselves is a little tricky, but recognizing where we've been in relation to the state, we've also seen some jumps there. So excited to see some of that progress over the last 3 years of the implementation of our strategic framework. But where I'd actually like to spend a brief moment tonight is thinking back to that committee voice. So you saw the data within the key findings, and we've woven that throughout all of the results policies. But we did go back to the initial committee from 21-22, and we asked this question: what impact has the strategic framework had on your work and the Verona Area School District over the last 3 years? And so you can see just a quote from Sarah Dammers, who is Department Chair for Social Studies here at the high school, speaking to the transformative power of PLCs, the authentic learning experiences that they've been able to create through that collaboration, and the deep learning for students as a result. In 21-22, there were not regular, consistent late start Mondays for our secondary staff. And so having that consistency and then building PLCs, she's highlighting as an important part of that work. And then of course we had to ask, Mr. Bruner for just one more quote. And so Mr. Bruner spoke to the importance of having the strategic framework as a guidepost at Sugar Creek. He named that prior to the strategic framework, our schools were setting various annual site goals. And the idea of the strategic framework really allowed for some clarity and unity as a district. And he just named that can't be overstated, the importance of what that looks like. So hearing from our initial committee members was really powerful here. And so I've asked Kristen just to share a bit about what her experience was on that committee and then what she's seen in practice since then.
Yeah, I think being on the committee, especially early in my career here in Verona, was really impactful because it really allowed me to see what it is that we value and all of the people that came to the table to help create it. It was a wide variety. We had board members, we had families, we had students, we had staff, we had administration. And so just to see everyone kind of coming together to create those priorities and really think through very strategically what it was that we were going to do in order to meet them, right? Because you can have a strategic framework, but I think more importantly, you have to know how you're going to implement it. In 21, 22, we didn't really have a solid definition of what good teaching and learning was. And so since then, we have worked to create the teaching and learning framework. That was actually something that I worked on with Karen Stocksglover as part of my, as Mr. Bruner likes to call it, principal school project. But I participated in the creation of that teaching and learning framework. And as being an instruction coach, associate principal, and then next year principal, that has just been like a very crucial document for me to be able to continually point teachers back to. Well, let's see, what does student agency actually mean? And we have some definitions of that on the teaching and learning framework. I will also echo Mr. Bruner's sentiment that the strategic framework shows up in our continuous improvement plan. And so that is what our school-based leadership team comes to at every single meeting to really see where are we making gains. And if you're at our end of year presentation on Thursday, you'll see like pretty much everything we do can be directly tied to one of those 5 strategic framework priority areas. And so it's just really great to have that be the through line and to continually say, does this align somewhere to our strategic framework? No? Okay, then maybe we need to rethink its priority and its importance in our day-to-day work. So teaching and learning framework, strategic framework, all coming together, and it just feels like we're not doing a bunch of things in silos, but we are really like all moving in one direction with the strategic framework kind of being that through line for us.
Thanks, Kristen. And so we'll continue reflecting on our strategic framework and gathering more voices from sort of reaching out to some of our students and families to get their input as well. But found, in addition to some of the quantitative data, that this street data from some of those original committee members has been really powerful in thinking through what were you thinking about in 21, 22, and now what does that look like in 25, 26. The leadership moves as we think about continuing on our path with the strategic framework. Back in March, we had our central office student academic services team go through the entire strategic framework. So there are 5 priority areas, but there's 18 strategic objectives within those 5 priority areas. And so we went through every single one of them to talk about what evidence do we have that we implemented it, what evidence do we have that it had the intended impact, and what might be some next steps. In May, we took that to our principal and leadership group for their input further on the progress that we've made so far and where we want to continue our efforts. Ultimately, we looked at those 18 strategic objectives and we began to sort them sort of into 3 categories. What were the strategic objectives that we need to accelerate that will have a greater impact if we can accelerate our strategy there? What are those that are already underway? Things like the teaching and learning framework that Kirsten spoke to that are really important to our strategy and we need to sustain. We can't let somebody forget about. And then we also recognized there were a bucket of strategic objectives that we wanted to adjust or reconsider. Not because they weren't great ideas, but we realized they might not actually be measurable. And we went to say, what was their impact? It was hard for us to quantify that. What would that look like? How can we prove that we've made an impact? We could list things we've done, but again, wanted to come back and hold ourselves accountable to impact. So we had a group of strategic framework objectives here that we want to come back to just adjust and reconsider what could the metrics be. Some of them we recognized also could potentially be combined. There were many that were saying similar ideas and combining from 18, condensing it a little bit, again, would allow us just to strengthen that through line moving forward and kind of concentrate our efforts. And so when we think about next steps, we are wrapping up year 3 of the strategic framework, and our plan is not to start developing a new strategic framework, but to continue on the strong progress and path that we have made. And so as our next steps, just really looking into, as we group those strategic objectives, the accelerate and sustain categories. These are things like our PLCs that our teachers are speaking about, the standards, including our social emotional learning standards, the data culture. We've seen a lot of data and we'll continue seeing more of it, continuing to build out that academic and behavioral support continuum. We know to meet all student needs, we need to continue to make that more and more robust. And then, of course, supporting our staff. We have amazing educators in this district and want to make sure that they have coherent professional learning systems and teaming systems to allow them to do their work and not feel like it's one more thing. And so those are areas that were all listed in Accelerate and Sustain, and we want to continue to move forward with. And then, as I named, the Adjust and Reconsider category, as we go back and think about our further continuation of implementation of the strategic framework, we want to consider what are the metrics to measure our progress in those specific areas, and where might we combine objectives that have a similar purpose or strategy, again, so that we can concentrate our efforts and make sure that we know moving forward what exactly that can look like. So overall, that's where we are at the end of year 3 with our strategic framework.
So we'll just say for the sake of putting it into public space.
I know, you were going, words per minute rocking over there.
That we, because we've had such significant feedback from staff and in essence our community around the belief in the priority areas that were selected within the strategic framework, and our desire to go deeper in that work, even though there may be tweaks here and there, but just to go deeper. We are not looking at 28 as some type of, you must stop here, it's all over in terms of a strategic framework. And I just wanted to put that in the space that it's not bookend. And, you know, we'll continue to bring it before. We're very happy that R6 became part of the policy, so it's deeper to review. So thank you, team. Thank you, John, for recognizing that. But again, I think school systems can get caught in spaces where you look at, okay, it says on the document 23 to 28, and now we just stop. And there's really not a reason for that to happen if we keep the momentum that we have right now, or as we keep the momentum that we have right now.
Yes.
Yeah, talking to Mr. Verona as well, he said he's so impressed with how many people know our 5 priority areas and know our equity vision, because it's deeply ingrained in everything we do and how we start our meetings, and that is the check of everything. Does it align? Does it align? If it doesn't, let's pause and rethink that. And so it's been really powerful as a tool, and no need to stop that forward momentum. But exciting opportunity here that it was, just to reflect back on what did the data look like in 21-22, and wow, there's some really exciting increases and jumps in both the quantitative data and in the staff and student experience that we can.
So as we turn this back over to the board, just reminding them, we knew this would come very similar to R5, that this isn't academic data rich as normal, because the academic richness was in R1 and R2. And so we didn't put those back again as part of the presentation, but just to our audience, that is just for an awareness that it does live, but just not in this results policy. So.
Oh my God, I have so much to say.
I do too. You haven't said anything yet.
I know. Well, I didn't think I would have that much to say, because I saw this on the agenda and I was like, oh, this would be a good time to reflect, because I sat on that committee as well as a board member. And as I was kind of thinking about, like, reflecting on it as you guys reported, it dawned on me that I actually sat on the previous strategic planning committee as well before this one. So 2018, that one that we did was some of my first involvement at the district level. And that was a really interesting process, because it was, you know, looking back on it now with the valuable hindsight that we have through all these policies and all this structure that we've created. I mean, that process was kind of haphazard and, you know, a little bit ridiculous. And, you know, I remember grabbing Noah, who was the board president at the time, and kind of chiding him that, like, if we don't follow through on this, I'm going to be at board meetings.
Yeah.
And because of like, and because of how it was, like, we couldn't really follow through on it. But it was also important because it was the first time, I think the first time really in this district, that we put some of the negative academic data around achievement gaps up in front of the community to say like, hey, now this isn't just unicorns and rainbows here. And you know, we weren't necessarily looking at the right data, but it was there. It was the first time that, to my knowledge, that we articulated things that we needed, like cultural responsiveness, that would be important to us going forward. And that opened up kind of the ability to make some changes in the district. But nothing like the process that we went through in 2022, 2023, that was like, you know, we could have fit everybody in 2018 in this room with food and with room to spare. In 2023, this strategic process, like, there were so many people, we like covered Verona Town Hall with sticky notes, like wall to wall, to just get at what everybody was saying was important to them and like what it meant to come to these categories. I disagreed more in 2023 with a lot of what was going on, like the process and how we were doing it. But when we got to something that was more meaningful to me, because of all the fighting and arguing in my own head about like, well, we're not really, no, that's not articulated the way I would articulate it. We got to the values that were really important. And, you know, I have the benefit of seeing other school districts in a lot of places, and they really, you know, try to articulate part of what we did or something like that, but it really did come out of the community. But here's where it gets really important and what I've really reflected on. The way that vision and both the strategic framework, R6 and R5, the journey of the lifelong learner, came out of that process as articulated not just by board members and teachers and administrators, but by community members, a lot of community members, a lot of sticky notes. That was then grounded in our practices, right? It's structured through the work that we've done subsequently on our policy statements, our operational statements, but those lofty kind of values that everybody knows good education should feel like collaboration, should feel like empathy, it should feel like student agency. But, you know, saying like, oh, here's a lesson to do that is hard. You're not going to find curriculum companies that are readily like throwing that out there. They all use the buzzwords. So, you know, that work that kind of connects it to the day-to-day operations of what we do has been profound. And it means that like, we don't feel like we're going in 1,000 different directions and nothing's getting done. And curmudgeon-y people like me are going to show up at every board meeting like, why isn't this happening? Like, you can see the efforts towards making it as a perfect. No, we fall down sometimes, yes. But because we have those guideposts, like, we're able to drop the policy statements, we're able to translate that into action. I say we, but really it's the administrative team that does most of that. You know, the board's done its policy statements and now we just get reports. It's wonderful. You know, but the daily work in the district gets anchored to like the community's values in a way that like, we're not chasing every initiative. When I see all this like alarmism and craziness about how AI is going to change the world, and I think about like, what are we going to have to educate our kids on so that they're ready for this world where like, they could be rendered useless if we're not careful, right? But then I see R6 and I see R5 and I'm like, that's exactly how I would articulate what we need to be doing. And we did this, you know, years ago. So, so that's how I think like good a job the whole community did at articulating these values and how essential it is to like, not just these reports that kind of reflect all the other reports, but like providing an anchor so that we can do all of these very different things. And we have this kind of understanding of how it's all connected to just make good people who are prepared for the crazy world that we built for them. So yeah, so this is a great report. I love it. I love the R5 report too, but I shouldn't be so reflective. I've got to keep graduating. So I'm reflecting on like all this stuff going on. And like, I have not had 18 years is not enough time to be a good parent. So I've not done that well, but now I'm reflecting on this. I'm like, man, we have come a long ways. And, all this like craziness that's going on around us, and we're still anchored and moving towards that kind of goal, and have like a sense of purpose about how we're doing there. It's pretty cool to see come out in these reports. That was a lot. I'm not gonna talk the rest of the time. I've been here.
I think that's good, past history that kind of informs where we're at now. And I think that's an important frame of reference that not everybody has. And even me from being on board, forget how all of that can be.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Or would you get all that?
Yep.
I didn't hear you say.
John expressed his opinions about the history of the process.
I put an editorial on omissions, but I have a disclaimer, not really, but more of a comment.
Love it.
I'll just first do a yes, and I'm so excited that this team, John, you really kind of being the impetus of embedding R5 and R6 as results policies to really do the pull through of how important that work was, how important it is to all of the day-to-day from what I'm hearing. And so why not have it reflected if we are really valuing it and we really are kind of expecting that it isn't just a sign on the wall. This, I think, just wraps it together. And I know, again, the immense work that means for the administrative team to bring reports like this, but we hope that it's merely a consolidation of what I'm hearing is happening. And that is so exciting. Because based on what you shared, I can't help but reflect back to when I was in the classroom here, and it truly felt like we were chasing shiny balls. And there was like this messaging of, yes, it's all connected. But if you had to tell me that over and over again, I couldn't say it, it didn't really feel that way. So I'm excited to hear that it sounds like classroom teachers, individual educators feel this in their day-to-day, feel it not as a weight or a compliance piece, but like a value with which we lead our instruction. And that feels like the true commitment back to the community and every member on that strategic framework committee, which I was also part of, for all the hours, all the investment, all the Post-it notes, that it is literally living and breathing every day in what we do. And I just appreciate how you kind of ended the report with sort of the way of capturing, the three categories of where we are with all of the kind of 18 qualifiers. And I just thought it was an effective thing to read and summarize in that way.
Yeah, I think if we try to make it 18, still feels like a lot sometimes. So
Sure.
we're trying to a way to help us make it manageable and feel like, yes, we've made progress here, and here's where we're going to continue to dive in. And I just echo, I think I really appreciate the R5 and R6, the opportunities to embed that in all of the results policies. We automatically think about academic areas and our core subject areas. But when I went down to use that quiz area words and started talking to them, what quantitative data do we have for results policy? Then I said, let's think about the strategic framework. I started talking about value and belonging and wellness and mental health and student agency. And then suddenly we have all, wealth of data. Look at what our student experience looks like. Look how we're helping our students progress in the journey of a lifelong learner, their self-awareness. And so I think it's also felt empowering that people can make those connections even, and especially in subject areas that might not feel as though their data is reflected on the ACT or the forward assessment, but we really value what you're able to help support our students in growing and in their development, as well as we think about a holistic vision in our school district. So thank you for the opportunity to think about our results policies this year in this way.
Like our site visit from VIIS, where I can statements can embed patience, and we hold value to that in this district. I can exhibit patience. That is just as important as I can be numerate, literate, all of that.
And we practice those, and we have 111 slides at board meetings.
And it's been amazing. Board members, remembering that the charge here with this being a results policy, and my cursor won't move very far, there we go, is whether or not we feel the district is achieving reasonable progress in terms of the strategic framework as a results policy, or if it's not being yet achieved. Certainly open to more discussion, questions. There's also opportunity to make a motion to that charge of reasonable progress.
Motion for achieving reasonable progress.
Thank you, Christopher. Is there a second? Thank you, Corby. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving results policy 6 strategic framework as achieving reasonable progress signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Thanks for your time, Kirsten. Good to see you again.
Thanks, Kirsten.
Maybe. Yes, let's check. So we're moving on to OE 10 for a second read for board action. Nate, do I need official language for a board vote?
No, it would just be a motion to approve or adopt the adjusted OE10 as presented or as approved.
Okay, thank you. So that is linked again, board members, and the draft language, if you look at it, does not have suggested indicators because that's not, right? We had that discussion last meeting as to what we might think about for indicators. But as we agreed, the charge that we have with the second read is how we feel about the policy language adjustments, which we discussed a bit last time in order to justify the first read officially. Any further questions or thoughts about the current draft of OE 10.2A? So I would accept a motion to adopt the draft of OE 10.2A as official new policy language.
So moved.
Thank you, Joe. Is there a second? I'll second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving OE 10.2A as adjusted policy language, signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, OE 10.2A is approved.
Team, while it's on my mind, Marcy, can we just put a note to ourselves to change the website tomorrow?
Yes. Thank you. All right, so moving on to general board updates. Anything related to OE8 communications or any other general board updates?
Yes, I have a general board update.
Yeah.
Last week, yeah, it feels like it was yesterday. The young scholars, young brothers of Improving Good Tomorrow had their first end of the year celebration at the Verona Area School District, right here in this room. And just want to personally thank Dr. Clarity, the entire team at Verona, Sister Marsha Bird, Sister Dr. Hawkins, Sister Tamara Stanley, Brother Sean Harris, everybody who has worked their butts off night and day to make sure these brothers are getting the attention that they need. And the celebration was incredible. We had Melly Mel's catered, lots of awards handed out, but the most meaningful moment for me was there was one of the brothers who thought that they weren't going to win an award, and they were just here to support the other brothers. That brother ended up winning the Resilience Award, and that was an incredible moment. We are still talking about the celebration at Verona every day, even in our meeting this morning. It was so emotionally moving. And then secondly, I really enjoyed the site visit at the AIS and NCS with Joe Haynes, Brother Joe Haynes. We had a lot of fun with the students there. We learned a lot from 4th and 5th graders. We even met a werewolf, right? Yeah. Yeah. He said he was a werewolf, and Joe said, "Do it right now, turn into one right now." And then he started making up excuses why he couldn't do it right now. Joe continued to talk to them about it. So it was such a fun visit. I want to personally be open enrolled in Mr. Lore's class. I want to run over some stuff with the wagon of destruction. So it's lots of fun.
It just is such a reminder. The site visits are so amazing, and I really wish I could always be at all of them. And I'm so glad that we've had representation at all of them thus far. We have 2 more remaining. So gratitude again to the board, to all the teams at all of the sites for putting things together. We continue to talk about ways to, what feedback we have about the different ways that end of year visits go with the different sites, ways to find ongoing touch points even throughout the year. So I'm excited about that energy and being able to be present to see some of that as a board member. I'm super appreciative. Thanks for the updates about IoT as well. Congratulations.
Just a general update as well. I had a chance to meet at Savannah Oaks and Center Prairie, and Center Prairie was a little tear-jerking for me because we were no longer there, but it was great to catch up with teachers and hear some great results, phenomenal presentations, and great visits. Happy Pride Month. Today's the first day of Pride, so that continues to be something that I think we need to, at least I'm focusing on. There's a lot of work socially across the nation for the city, et cetera. And then Saturday, I had the humbling honor to give a speech and accept an award with GSAFE. I mentioned that earlier. Largest group I've ever had to present to, and it was I wasn't nervous at all, which was crazy. And I gotta say, the ovation was great to be alongside the governor, who also received some recognition that night. So probably honored to receive that as a community activist award.
Thank you. Congratulations again. And thank you to our district team. We did have some things on social media today to recognize the start of Pride Month. So thank you to our district communications team. All right, just a couple sort of general announcements then. We have future dates, but reminders, the remaining site visits. We have the TWE graduation on Thursday that we've been invited to. Graduation obviously on Sunday, thanks to all of you that will be able to attend for a multitude of reasons. It's exciting. So yeah, just those reminders of dates. And then moving on to superintendent consent agenda, being sure that you've looked that over this evening for personnel updates. Any questions? Hearing none, the superintendent's consent agenda is approved, and then our board consent agenda, which includes minutes and 2 of our note-taking reports from last time. Are there any questions? Hearing none, the board consent agenda is approved. So just a reminder, especially for our graduation, that we have the special board meeting at 1:30 to confer the graduates and diplomas. So if you are coming, that's a necessary piece because we need a quorum to please save yourself travel time. Right, with the ceremony starting at 2, we're going to be a massive group of people all arriving with families and loved ones. So if you can aim to be there at 1:10, that sounds great, doesn't it? Bring a snack. So yeah, because we need to start at 1:30 to get our board business done so we can start the ceremony on time and be ready.
Steam your gowns.
Steam the gowns? Not just hang them up? I don't own a steamer. Steam the gowns.
Put it in nice. Put it in the bathroom.
Oh, there you go. Okay. All right, steam the gowns. And we are going to have help with the things. The other part of it, the hood. Yeah. Okay, then be there at 1 o'clock for hood help. Sold. Great. If you have questions, please, I know the district does a great job communicating maps and all the things, so board members, please look at that so we can be there on time. All right, with all of that and 110 slides later, I would accept a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Meredith. Is there a second? Thank you, Corby. All those in favor of adjourning tonight's meeting signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned.